Now, today, we are gonna see, what if Harry Potter was abandoned in the Dead Night Forest? Join Patreon for early ACESS and exclusive content of Super Op stories. Also adult and steamy Harry Potter stories too. Please subscribe this channel, because definitely I will try my best to provide a valuable content for you all. Also check the description to support the original author for this beautiful creation. Since when did I obey the rules? Dove Cameron as Mallory. Sophia Carson as Eva. Cameron Boyce as Carl. Boo Boo Stewart as Jackson. Mitchell Hope as Brent. Thomas Doherty as Harry. China Ann McLean as Irma. Whatever, just don't die. That's be bad for my reputation. Your mother retaliated. She was so full of herself. Everything was always about her. Ever since your dad had left after you were born, your mother had gotten ever worse to tolerate. Life on the outcast isle was all you had ever known and all you had ever hoped to know. You hated Avaloria. How could you not? They had given you nothing but rotten food and decaying clothes. Like, okay, your mother had murdered some people, get over it. Now you being you only had a couple friends. Only pay. Opal you could trust were your dear friends Mallory, Eva, Carl, Jackson and your other friends Elijah and Hunter. The children of Maleficent, evil ruler, Cruella de Vil, Jafar and none other than the sons of the big bad wolf. Well, that was until 4 of them betrayed you after they had started a new life in Avaloria, leaving you almost on your own since Elijah and Hunter were almost always busy with their dad's creepy-ass shop. You were taking your original route to get to your hideout. You had made this with the twins a while back when you were 13. You had taken a left-hand turn from you house or castle as your mother liked to call it, and then from there climbed a ladder that was hidden by a wolf skin carpet that hung far from the top of the building. From there you climbed through the window through the twins' apartment. And through the window on the other side of the room. From there you landed on a long pipe connecting the 2 buildings. Carefully you tiptoed your way to the other side the other side and hopped through the window. Sup losers, you said, strutting deeper into the room and plopping down on the couch. Oh hey YN. Elijah said as he came out from the shadows after watching the TV. You then heard a scoff that was followed by a deep voice who belonged to none other than Hunter, the other twin and the ruder one. Hunter and Elijah were basically your pets, your little gang that you hang out with. People were scared of you and Hunter because of your reputation as a corsair and because Hunter was your first mate, so no one messed with him, while Elijah was more quiet. ND didn't really like anything you and his brother liked. You see, your vessel the Flying Dutchman had a reputation like no other. It was docked on a private island behind the Outcast Isle that nobody was allowed to go. Mainly since you owned it and anyone that broke those rules would have to answer to you or your dead team. Traitors on the TV, Hunter scowled. TCH, what a fake-ass princess, so perfect, you replied to him. I can't wait to get my hands on her and watch her squirm, watch everything she loves crumble. You continued. Oh, and her little prince too, TCH, honestly she could have had a NY1 else and she picks that good-for-nothing crybaby, you scowled. Mates, I can't wait to get out of here and rip Avaloria apart, the 2 boys cheered. You stood up and put your hand in the middle of the room. While the boys stood there smirking as Hunter strutted over to me and Elijah soon after followed. As you began, forever and always, you said as they put their hands under yours. Let the red flag fly. You all shouted as a bright red beam shot up into the sky, releasing a skull symbol into the sky and breaking a piece of the roof in the process. You could always get that repaired later. Meanwhile, everyone on the Outcast Isle had looked up to see the symbol that represented the Flying Dutchman, as half of them shook with fear as the other half roared and cheered that the Flying Dutchman was to be released. S-Pav. I watched in awe as the signal was sent up into the sky. I had wanted to sail the ocean since forever and had heard tales of the vessel before but had never seen it move. But never could since I was stuck on the Outcast Isle and wanted ever so desperately to rip Mallory and her little squad apart, and who better of an ally to have than the Flying Dutchman themselves. I thought as I smirked to myself. Harry, Gil, I screamed, it's time. Finally, I heard a familiar Scottish accent shout. I chuckled, what's my name? Irma. Everyone in the rest. Orant roared, let's go pay a little visit to YN. Quote, as the beam slowly died out, I had begun my journey back to my vessel, leaving Elijah and Hunter at the base. I quickly but swiftly climbed over the Pole and jumped to the side of off the pole and turned mid-air and gripped onto the pole hanging sideways and began emitting red light from my hands as I jumped down, landing with my hands to my side. As I flicked my head up, my HCHL, hair blowing in the wind. If you don't have hair, then ignore that. You began flying to your vessel to save time since it was on the other end of the Outcast Isle. The no mystical powers rule. Yeah, that was made mainly for Maleficent, who was now, dare you say, a lizard. You began chuckling at that thought. The almighty ruler of evil turned into a lizard by her own little traitor daughter. The type of mystical powers you wield. You sped up to get there, taking a series of turns left right until you were in the clear and about 4 minutes away. UARRIVED not long after to find your team working on the vessel. Probably cleaning it up to avoid punishment from you just in case you were in a bad mood, which inevitably you were. But that wouldn't last long. I'm back, you said, strutting over to your vessel. As you were walking, red emitted from your hands as your casual clothes you were wearing turned into none other than your corsair suit. Let's get this show in the road. You smirked. I was fiddling around with the wheel on the vessel, not worrying about floating off since the vessel followed its own orders, when one of the team members came and bowed to me before they began talking. Cap'n YN, there was a figure spotted headed this way from the north. I nodded before replying, well, let's see who's next on the kill list. I smirked as HE nodded and left down the stairs to repair one of the rotting wooden planks on the front deck. I walked over to my chest that was behind me and the wheel and reached into my pocket to put out a key, WITH a corsair symbol on it that had a snake coming out of its mouth. Using the key, I bent down and inserted the key before twisting it round until I heard the click inside of the box. I reached to open it, and inside was a couple valuables such as some coins, maps, and my spy glass. Reaching for it and extending it, I closed the box and locked it back up before hiding the key in my pocket and extending my spy glass to look at where the figure was. Course Irma had to send me to do dirty work. She sent me to recruit some corsair that could be of help. I had to admit I was rather intrigued. Cons. I've never seen Irma so persistent for a new member, well, never since me, of course. I was heading there before I felt a pair of eyes on me. I turned to look forward and my blue eyes stared into her eyes as she put her telescope down and turned away to walk down the stairs of the vessel she was on. Found ya, lass, I smirked. As this mysterious person walked up to the vessel where you were ordering the team to put down a rope so you could climb down and see who it was. Once they had you, swiftly gripped onto the rope and slid down, doing a side roll onto your feet, standing a few feet away from the man. He had a red coat on, with a shredded white shirt that was probably an intimidation tactic, showing of his muscles to make sure no one messes with him, black boots and a corsair hat. He striking blue eyes that were no doubt the ones that you had seen a couple minutes ago. You're pretty bold, ya know, you started. Everyone's too afraid to come here since they know no one actually Eve's when they enter my property. He just smirked and chuckled darkly at this. As that, ow, ya intimidate people, lass, he said as you glared at him. Well, since you're on my land, I at least deserve to know who you are and how many people I have to kill to get you to leave, you replied coldly, stating at your nails and giving him a side glare. What makes ya think you could do that then, darlin'? He EPLIED in his thick Scottish accent as he walked closer to you and put his hook up to your cheek and caressed it softly, before you grabbed his hand and twisted his arm around. Ah, is the little princess mad? He smiled. You just scoffed. Listen, pal, I'm not in a good mood and I don't think you wanna be angering me right now. He stayed silent as you held him there for about 20 more seconds. Before you released him from your hold and let him turn around before continuing. Now I am so annoyed right now and just do not have the time nor resilience to kill you, but do not think for 1 second about coming back here. He stared at you before smiling. See, now I was told that you, lass, never showed any mercy. Would you appear to have a soft spot for me at all? Love, he said while smirking. As he laughed manically, you just scoffed at his remark before replying. Don't even think about it or I will have your head. And you are just lucky that I left my sword in the vessel, otherwise your head would be up on my wall by now, you replied with your own smirk, thinking that you had won and that he would finally leave, although a part of you didn't want him to. Maybe it was his good looks, is smirk that you would never admit, but it sent shivers down your spine, or the fact that he wasn't scared of you and actually was able to hold a conversation with you instead of quaking in his boots and running away crying? Wait, no. You couldn't think about that. You couldn't get sidetracked with him. You had one goal on your mind and one goal only, revenge. Well then lass, I guess you win, yeah. Never, avenue to see me again, he said, turning around and walking to the fence. You thought about it for a second before remembering you didn't even know who he was. Wait, you said before, he turned around smirking. Yes lass, who are you? You asked with a curious expression. Henry Hark, my darling, and you won't forget it, he said before tuning away. What a curious person. You hopped back on to your boat and then you set sail, wanting to go exploring for a while since you hadn't been out for a while. Boys, you shouted as they all rushed to the deck. Yes Cap'n, they all replied. I wanna go on a little adventure, so if you go. Scurry, you shouted as they nodded and one by one began jumping down from the boat. Once they had all left, you began to steer the wheel as they boat moved with the wind and began sailing off as far as it could. You steered left since you hadn't really been that way before and continued on until you bumped over something. You walked down the steps to peer over the edge but didn't manage to see anything. You decided to explore some more and jumped over the side after attaching a rope to the boat and using it to propel yourself down. While you swam around, you came across a coral reef. But not the kind you hear about in Ariel's undersea wedding. No, this was dark and gloomy, filled with the dead souls of old pirates trapped, but none other than the famous Morgana and her sister Ursula. You decided this was nothing out of the ordinary and decided to leave, but something caught your eye beforehand. A weird black blob that seemed to be staring at you. Non-existent eyes, but you just shrugged it off as a deformed seas creature. Once you had swam back up to the surface before almost losing your breath, you turned to look for that thing again, but it was gone. You shrugged it off and began pulling yourself up the rope before leaping up the side and jumping over. What a peculiar day. Meanwhile, she's perfect, a dark voice said, creeping back into the shadows in search of food. I will live after all. Time skipped the next day. I couldn't get Hook out of my mind for some odd reason, like how his eyes practically glowed, they were so light, or how he dressed and walked like he owned every piece of land that he stepped on. He was engraved into my mind and I couldn't for the life of me get him out. She weren't even scared, and I swear I saw her vessel move. She wasn't bad looking for a lass, I guess, and I couldn't help but think about her eyes. They glowed under the sun, and how on earth I was going to get her on the team. You were still king about Harry and what he wanted and why he had come to find you. Better yet, who had sent him, and you were determined to find out. You were so desperate that you went to your dear friend the ocean. You were currently walking down the stairs that connected your cabin, your steering wheel, to the main deck below as you peered over the edge of the vessel. Boys, you shouted as they all stopped they were doing to glance over at you. Take her under, you said as they all smiled. You heard her under and nodded as they began working on the boat as you began to fall below the ocean under the water as you were hit with a wave while you held your arms wide as you laughed manically. Unbest to you, someone had watched this happen as they smirked under their skin. Looks like lass is more the end she puts out, they said as they laughed. They began to watch intently. When I was fully submerged, I began turning into a half-mermaid as AFC tail formed from my waist as the part of my chest where my heart was started glowing red. It soon went away as I released a breath I didn't even realize I was holding. I began to swim as far as I could away from the outcast isle, and as soon as I where I swiftly pushed my head back as my back bent with it until I was facing the water below instead of the empty dark blue water ahead of me. I glided past all of the weeds and piranhas. She called the dark abyss of the ocean their home. I stopped in front of a circular hole at the bottom of the ocean that was covered by vines. This better be worth it. I had sent Harry back since he didn't come back with who I wanted as I began raging out for no good reason. I was scowling at anyone who dared lay eyes on me. I was throwing pots around until I heard some heavy boots press hardly against the creaking floorboard as a familiar pair of black boots stopped in front of the counter. So, I asked, venom laced in my voice. Well, as ya can see, Cap'n, she ain't here, but I did find out something very interesting. he said with a tiny smirk that would be hidden to the naked eye. Oh. Do tell Hook. He then began to explain what he saw. Starting with how your boat had submerged under the water, staying completely afloat. Just not on top of the water. No, under the water. Then how he saw a faint glow from under the water as he peered down from the concrete legs that overlooked the OCE. And when he saw you glowing until your legs were covered in FC as they turned from your waist into a long FC tail before you swam far away and out of his sight right into the ocean without turning back. Morgana, I shouted as I moved the vines out of the way as I slowly but carefully made my way further into it before landing in a lagoon-like area. Luckily for Morgana, Ursula's sister, her base was already within the Outcast Isle borders, meaning that she never had to move and she still had her own home. TCH lucky ocean witch. Ah, YN what a pleasure to see you again, she said to you as you carefully swam through all of the vines that were grabbing at your arms and legs. You smacked many of their hands away from you to avoid any viruses that may or may not be living inside of them. You seriously stole your sister's idea, how original of you. You said, looking disgusted at all of the strange forms. If anything, she copied me, she said, glaring at her words as she spat the tea out to you before turning back to making potions. Still no luck getting out then, I see, you said while looking around and avoiding anything that looked like it could kill you before turning to her and swimming over. Why are you here? I was in the middle of my manicure, you sat next to her. Don't be like that. I just need your help finding a certain someone so I can help them, you said while smiling at her. Whatever, just leave, she said while walking away from you, grabbing a crystal ball. You went to reach out for it, flexing your fingers to grab it as she pulled it away from your grasp. You know I always have a price for these kind of things. You frowned and pouted at her. What? You replied, I wish for you to not come back for a whole year and leave me alone, she said while raising her voice when she got to the last word, alone. Done, yes okay, just gimme, you said, making grabby hands. She sighed and placed it in your hands. You made contact with it as your eyes glowed red, as did your hand, as electricity surged between you and Morgana but left as soon as it was fully in your grasp. Thank you, you said, swimming at a fast pace out of the cavern. Morgana sighed. That kid, she said, looking down and smiling. You were on your way back to your house after finishing of some business with the team and you were absolutely exhausted. PLANNING revenge was harder than you thought it would be. As you were getting to the more complex parts of the town, you started contemplating which way you could go. Both take you the same way but both had different outcomes. Left was short and dodgy whilst right was long yet safer. Who are you kidding? You obviously chose left. Screw danger. You were YN heart danger fears you. You had been gone for 2 days straight. Your mum must be worried. Oh, you are so screwed when you go home. She always needed to know where you were, and in some ways you guessed that was her way of keeping you safe, which OT gonna lie made you happy that she cared. No one ever really did care about you. I mean, your friends ditched you. Your remaining friends are rarely ever around and your team could count as your friends but they were dead. And cursed so they didn't exactly count. Plus they worked for you. You were walking down the alleyway that was about 3 streets from your house before you heard the cries of children and the sight of people slowly fading away due to lack of, well, everything. It made you think for a second. How could anyone do this to someone? Most of the Outcast Isle were innocent and hadn't even committed a crime in their life. And then it hit you. King Brent, Maul's boyfriend and the king of Bor Aden. He and his father did this and you would never forgive them. You thought about how happy Mallory was while you continued walking, while glancing at the posters stuck to the decaying walls. One stuck out to you the most. It was a picture of Mallory and Brent. She looked so happy it made you sick to your stomach. How can she sit there smiling while she knows what's going on at the Outcast Isle? We are practically rotting away. This made your blood boil as you spotted a trash can as you kicked it over as its content flew and dropped out, spilling everywhere. You clenched your fists in anger as you turned around, walking away. You heard the faint sound of boots behind you. Why? Oh, you didn't think much of it since it was a public alleyway. Well, that was until you heard them speed up. You could hear multiple pairs of boots hit the ground, roughly banging against the concrete every single step. You glanced over your shoulder to see the faint outline of 3 rather tall men. You turned around fully as you started walking backwards slowly until they all looked directly at you, acting as if they hadn't been staring at you for the past 3 minutes. "What do y'all want?" you'd said, getting a better look at them. The one at the back left of the group had dirty blonde hair that was extremely messy, bushy eyebrows. The one next to him had crooked teeth that were having a showcase since he had been grinning at me with his eyebrows raised. And the final one was the one at the front, had dark bushy black hair. It was quite long and he had dark green eyes. I stared into his with my eyes. "Don't you think that you're a bit too weak to be around these parts?" the supposed leader said as the others laughed at his joke. I just scoffed at his remark and stayed quiet, since I really just didn't want to deal with this today. "Ah, she can't talk back, that's SADDDD, that's where I draw the line. The only sad thing I see right now is you." He obviously wasn't expecting that, as his face went from a smile to a scowl. He growled. "What did you just say?" he said, walking closer to you. "You cool?" See him raise his fist as he continued coming closer. You just sighed in disappointment and in slight amusement as you turned your head away, as your eyes started glowing FC as you emitted the SAM color as it seeped through your hands as you threw your hand to the side as it blasted into him as you threw him back into the wall without touching him. The others were bewildered as to how you used mystical powers on the outcast isle. "What? How?" the one with the blonde hair exclaimed as he stared in slight fear and amazement, since it was such a beautiful power, yet he was worried for his life. "Who's next?" you said with a scowl on your face that quickly turned into a smirk when you say their expressions. "Ha, as if I could beat you, powers or no powers," the man with the crooked teeth said with determination in his voice. "Well, this'll be fun." You started emitting you power through your hands as it surged through your veins. You turned away for a second, and that was enough for the to exchange looks, and within seconds they began to run towards you. You could hear the not so subtle men running with their boots crashing against the concrete. You turned around with your eyes glowing FC. "Ya know it's not nice to sneak up on people." The blondie was running at you from the right as the crooked man ran from the left, their friend being unconscious in the background. When EY were close enough, you turned fully towards them and held them up in midair, both struggling against the hold of your mystical powers. "Well, this is quite the predicament," you said, chuckling darkly. "Who's the sad one now?" faking a pout on your face while they struggled. "Let us go," the old one breathed out. "Well, they asked for it." You did as he said as you threw them into the area that you left their friend. Word of warning: if you want to survive around these parts, never mess with a ruler. 5. You had just gotten home, and as soon as your mother heard the door shut, she came rushing down the stairs, almost falling. Where have you been?" she shouted while rushing over and pulling you into a bone-crushing embrace. Mom, I can't breathe." "Never do that again. I could have lost you," she said whilst crying. "She's such a drama ruler, but she's doing it because she loves you and you appreciated her so much for that." "Okay, now get out, I have a date." Your face went cold. What now?" "That's the 3rd time this week. But you weren't prepared to say that." "Okay, I was headed out anyways, just wanted to come and see you." She just smiled slightly as she broke out of the embrace and practically pushing you to the door. You guys made a heart symbol with your hands, you using your right hand and she used her left. "Bye, Mum. Love ya." Me too, kid." And with that you left wearing your casual attire. You put on a black plaid skirt that stopped just on top of your knees, black combat boots with laces that stopped at your knees. You put on your favorite ring that was connected to the bracelet, and your hoodie that had cat ears on. I'm so hungry. I thought about it for a moment and realized I could just go home and grab a snack, then suddenly remembered about my mother's date. So I had a feeling I wouldn't be going back there for a while. I didn't feel like stealing from little children today, so I just kind of was. It hit me. Why don't I just buy food? I mean, it's not like I can't, so I guess I'ma get some food then. The only question is from where? I was just working and trying to think of who would be a decent addition to the team since we weren't getting to join anytime soon. Harry was off somewhere doing God knows what when I heard the doors open in the Whole restaurant went silent. This was extremely strange, so I abandoned the kitchen and walked over to the bar. And that's when I saw her. "Hey, you're Ursula's daughter." Irma was it. Yeah, that's me. Cool. Anyways, can I get some food?" she said as I nodded and screamed. "Hey mum, make some food you ordered." "Wait, Ursula's here?" she asked me as I cocked a brow. "Yeah, why?" "Oh nothing, I just know her sister." "You know your Aunt Morgana?" I was bewildered. "Wait, how do you?" She then explained to me how one day when she went out swimming she had met the ocean witch and kind of just formed a kind of bond together. So yeah, I kind of just am friends with her. Plus she gave me this, she said whilst pulling out a crystal ball and putting it on the table, then turning to her food that one of the waiters had dropped onto the table and began eating. "Funny story actually. This ball is how I found your chip shop." "What, how?" I asked in shock. She just shrugged and said, "Just ask it a question and it'll answer whatever you have to throw at it. Oh, and plus if you think hard enough you can create a picture of it in your mind. Well, that's only if you have mystical powers. But something tells me you do." How did she know that I hadn't actually told anyone besides Gil and Harry? "Yeah, I do. Oh, and while I'm at it, I'm aware that you are a Corsair." She just nodded in response while eating her food. "Well, it just so happens that I have a team. I believe that we could be great allies considering I'm a great leader and your vessel is amazing." When I said that, she looked up. "Thanks for the offer, but I usually work alone. Or with cursed dead men, but that's just normal. So sorry, but I think you're okay without me." "You look like a great leader." I was bewildered. No one that I had met had ever complimented me. Ever. Not even Harry, since it was just him and I messing around. She sat up and started walking away. "Wait," I said in a rush. She turned around. "Yes, if you join." I thought for a second, then a light bulb was above my head. "We could bring down an Avaloria and get revenge on everyone who ever wronged us." "Revenge on Mallory," I breathed out as I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. She seemed to think about it for a moment. Fists clenched at the mention of Mallory. "No thanks, I really do pref," she began, but got cut off by a familiar voice. "I'm back, KK," I hissed as Mallory said that in a singy kind of way. I looked at YNW. Ho has heard her as she turned around to me and said, "I'll do it." I smirked as she slowly started disappearing until the only thing left was her smile that soon faded away as she just dissolved into nothing. I walked into Uma's chip shop after the exiles had talked to Harry about the deal and that Irma apparently wanted to see me. As I walked in and said the words, "I'm back, KKK, gathering attention of everyone in the room, I swear I saw a person dissolving, and the last thing I saw was their hair, or again, if you don't have hair then she saw your smile instead. I pushed that thought to the back of my mind. My main focus was Brent right now, and I was determined to get him back no matter what. "Loser party of one. Right this way please," I heard Irma say to me as she chuckled and kicked me a chair that I caught. I turned it around and sat on it as I said, "Place still stinks," trying to get into her head. "Oh, I'm sorry, we're down a butler today." "Princess," she said with venom engraved into her words. "Where is he?" I asked in a monotone voice. "Ya know I've dreamed of this. Haha, you wanting something from me. And me watching you squirm like a worm on the hook," I replied with a comeback as soon as she had finished. "I'm so flattered you dream of me, I haven't given you a thought since I left," I said, continuing to chew my gum. This obviously aggravated her as she came over and slammed her hands on the table and scoffed. "Obviously," she said, staring into my eyes. "You have the perfect little life, don't you?" She started walking up to people. "Doesn't she have the perfect little life?" As people around her started agreeing and laughing along with her. "While we're 20 years into a garbage bin," she said while coming back to the table. "If you have some kind of score to settle with me, game on. I see no need to bring Brent into this." She just laughed at me and came over, putting her hands near mine and leaning over the table from the left side. "It may be a little bit unnecessary, but oh, it is so much fun. Here's the deal." Her face turned from a smile to a sinister scowl. "Just like your mother, always a catch." She then slid her hands over the desk and PPED down into the seat that was in front of me. "If you win, Brent is free to go." she said, shrugging and holding her hand out, referring to an arm wrestle. I just smirked, knowing I could win because of my mystical powers. I held my hand out onto the table. Don't you want to know what I get if I win? She continued while brushing her hand against mine. Still dreaming, I scoffed. As our hands collided and we gripped each other firmly. Last time I checked, yo mother thought she had things all sewn up too, huh? How'd that work out for her again? People around her started laughing. On 3, 1, 2, 3, we both said at the said time as we began, and we were using our strength to try and push the others down, but so far our strength was equal as our arms stayed roughly in the middle. Each of us pushing hard. That whole princess act, TCH never bought it for a second. I just stood there looking in her eyes. You can stick a tiara on a rogue, but you're still a rogue, saying as she looked me up and down with her nose twitching in disgust. And you can slap a corsair hat on, but you're still shrimpy. I fake gasped as she pushed my hand harder, the table shaking. I decided to NTS as my eyes glowed a light green as I looked in her eyes as she avoided them. She chuckled, watching as her hand was being pushed down by mine. I could tell she was struggling by her breaths that were slightly hinged. If I win, you bring me the staff, she said between breaths. I was caught off guard as my mystical powers wore off. I wasn't expecting it as my grip on hers loosened and she took the chance to push my hand down on the table. The whole restaurant roared and cheered. She stood up in her chair, arms raised in victory and success. She lowered her hands to the table and started her talk of demands. Now, if you want Beastly Boy back, bring me Fairy Godmother's staff. To my vessel tomorrow at 12 noon, sharp, she said, getting you to walk away before turning around and flipping her turquoise hair. I looked over to her. Oh, and if you pull out, you can kiss your baby goodbye, and besides, faking won't work. I have a friend that could destroy all of Avaloria. She clicked her fingers, like that. And she does not like you, she said, chuckling and walking away. Who was she talking about? It was the next day and you had just put on your corsair outfit. You began walking to the destination that Irma had said to go to. The sounds of your boots walking across the various different types of cracked concrete before a flash of purple walked into the shop that identified as Lady Tremaine's Curl Up and Dye shop. Very welcoming. You hadn't seen them around before, so you decided to follow them. You decided it'd be best you didn't walk in, so you just went to the alleyway on the left of the building where there was a cracked window you could look through. When you looked into it, you saw Mallory, and that made your blood boil, but what was worse was Eva was there with her. You wanted to scream, confront them about what they had done to you and how alone they left you. But you couldn't, otherwisely never leave you alone. You heard something along the lines of smoke bomb and DECOY, plus the never-ending conversation about fashion between Dizzy and Eva. You had heard enough to analyze what they were planning. If they needed smoke bombs, they would most likely have a reason to escape. And why would they need to escape if Irma didn't attack them without reason? But she would have a reason. A fake staff. Well, that just confirmed it. You had done enough to report back to Irma. Ya see, you met up with Irma right after Mallory had left, and you had both agreed I would join her team, and so could my pirates, even if they terrified her team. Between that time, you and Irma could even have become friends. You had a lot in common and your pirating ways matched hers perfectly. You had also decided to meet up the next day before Mallory and the exiles came for Brent's eye. Could make sure he didn't escape before then. I walked through the alleyway and then continued my way to where Uma's vessel was. It wasn't too far away, which was good for me. I walked through at least 2 streets, knocking over some stands. Stealing from little kids before you had made it to the alleyways. You had come to the exit to the alley, and as you walked through it you saw an elderly woman. You had an apple in your hand and decided to give it to her. Here, she turned to face you as you held an apple out to her. Take it, I said, shoving it in her face. Thank you. She took it and began eating it as you turned on your heels. Wait, miss, what was your name? You turned around to face her with a smirk plastered on your face. YN heart. You turned round and walked through the 2 NNEL connecting the garage to the vessel and stopped at the entrance. Here we go, I muttered, stepping onto the wooden planks that overlooked the water below. You carefully walked across it as to not fall into the water. Irma, you shouted hoping to find her. But instead you had found Hook. He had the king in front of him. From the look of it he was teasing him. That's enough, Hooky. He turned to look at you, surprised as his eyes widened and a smirk took over his face. Would y'all look at that? No, 'cause I can't look at myself, you deadpanned as he smiled. Oh, and what a beautiful thing y'all will. DC if could. You felt the heat rise to your cheeks. TCH whatever, Hook, you said before walking over. Where's Irma? You asked. No idea, he replied while glancing at you. Well, why? Oh, you see her, tell her that she should test the staff beforehand. I followed Mallory the faker to Dizzy's shop. I heard something about a decoy and smoke bombs. I said as I walked over to the side of the vessel. Harry walked up behind you and looked over the railing. The water is beautiful and mysterious, don't you think, Hook? YN said, looking back at me. I couldn't agree more, lass. You smiled slightly. It wasn't your usual scowl, though it was genuine, and this did not go unnoticed to the Scottish Corsair as he watched you walk over to Brent. What do you see in Mallory? She asked him as I grew curious but look oblivious. Well, she's smart, caring and pretty. Yeah, ya see, would a caring person promise to come back for you and give you the life you never got and then go and leave for 6 meters? Once never to come back until being over there becomes too much. Would a caring person leave you alone with no friends without even saying goodbye? YN's sudden outburst shocked both Harry and Brent, as they both felt some sympathy towards the girl. You're YN right, Brent said, looking at the HC. How'd ya know that? You said with annoyance in your voice. Eva talked about you a lot, ya know. Always how she missed designing with you. How she couldn't wait to be with you. How good of a friend you were. You just scoffed. Well, she obviously wasn't nice enough to return the favor, you said, GLA. Ring at Brent as Harry watched at the sidelines, feeling bad for the girl. He knew what it felt like to be alone. And I bet that Mallory never thought about me once, you said while walking away. You should come back with me to Avaloria. You're good, YN, and you'd like it there. You turned to face him with a few stray tears down your cheeks. Right, 'cause God forbid we are forced into being bad because of how others treat us. Having a good heart doesn't change the fact that before you met me you labeled me as a rogue for another's actions. Well, if you wanna treat me like a rogue, then I'm gonna act like one. You said, grabbing your Corsair hat and putting it against your chest before extending your left arm while your right hand that was carrying your hat was across your chest, your right leg crossed over your left as you bowed. Good day, gentlemen, you said, putting your hat on and turning on your heels, your cape flowing behind you. Damn, Harry said, looking at your figure while you walked away. As I walked away my eyes fell onto Irma as I saw her walking over to the vessel. Howdy, stranger, you said, making her look at you as she smiled. Hey YN, oh, just so ya know, Mallory I's gonna use a fake staff, so make sure it works first. She just nodded. Yeah, I expected her to pull something like this, you agreed, knowing how much of a snake Mallory used to be. Just when you and RMA were at the front of the vessel you heard a car pull up and some whispers. They're here, you said so everyone could hear you. Gil, you stay here. Harry, take Brent to the plank. NYN, you come with me. You nodded and walked to the plank connecting the vessel to the dock. Just then you heard footsteps walk out from under the tunnel. There stood the exiles and a girl you have never seen before and a dog. Finally, Harry shouted as you giggled slightly as everyone turned their attention to you. YN, Mallory said as she looked at you with tears in her eyes. Remember me, you chuckled. Bold Irma, italic Mallory, underline Harry, and Brent, bold and underline you. Let's get this party started. I swear I'm cold-hearted. There's no negotiation. I'm not here for debating. Irma sang as she walked up closer to Mallory. You need some motivation, just look at Ben's face and ask how long you think we'll remain patient. You sang, walking up behind Irma as all of the exiles looked over to you. With sorrow in their eyes, mainly Eva. I'll throw him overboard and let him swim with killer sharks. Irma smirked. You either hand over the staff or he'll be ripped apart. Ang as Harry looked over to you smirking. Now let's all just be smart, although for you that must be hard. You'll get your staff, no one has to come to any harm. Don't try to intimidate, your bark is much worse than your bite. Who's the baddest of them all? I guess we're finding out tonight. Mallory replied, making me scowl at her. Let's go, bring it on. Better give us what we want. It's the stuff. F for the crown, if you don't it's going down. Let's go, make your move. Peace or war, it's up to you. Give him up and do it now, if you don't it going down. We want the staff or else the king is gone. Your time is running out, you should really watch your mouth. All of the pirates sang. Harry's still looking at you. Let's go pound for pound. We're prepared to stand around. Put your swords up. Put 'em up, it's going down. The exiles sang. Ooh ooh ooh, make the trade. Oh 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 oh, or walk the plank. Make the trade or walk the plank. Mallory just sighed and started singing. Okay, look, this is not a conversation. It's a do or die situation. If you don't gimme back the king, I'll have no hesitation. I'll serve you right here, and I don't need a reservation. That way your whole Corsair team can have a demonstration. Release him now and we can go our separate ways. Unless you wanna deal with me. And the exiles, she smirked. You and Irma looked at each other and laughed. As Harry walked over. So that's your big speech, huh? An empty ultimatum. You sang as Harry walked up behind you. All it takes is one swing, and I'll humiliate him. Matter of fact, make one wrong move and I'll debilitate him. And if he even starts to slip, I'll eliminate him. All it takes is you grabbed his hook, drawing his attention to you. As you and Irma said in unison. Harry, we get it. Chill, you. Let go of his hook and turned back towards the exiles. Everyone began singing their main choruses before Brent interrupted. Hey, we don't have to choose. We don't have to light the fuse. Mallory, whatever you do it's gonna be a lose. Lose. There's gotta be a better way. Silly king. You give us. You're gonna give us a chance. Huh, not a chance. You sang to him. Everyone began sword fighting as Mallory and Irma faced off while you ran off to go fight with Jackson. While you were sword fighting, you were blocking all of his attacks as you bent down to try and kick his feet down, but he jumped up BEF. Or you could kick him, so you quickly got up and roundhouse kicked him in the head, but as soon as you had finished it you fell back down to the ground. But when you dropped, one of Uma's team that was attempting to stab Jackson had stabbed you when you fell down. Everyone looked over and Harry and Irma were the first to get there. OMGYN, Irma screamed. Lass. Before they got there, a black substance had slithered over to you. Hello YN, you heard a dark voice say before the black substance went up your nose and into your wound. It moved your hand that was holding the wound and started healing it. You slowly got up, still holding your wound, as Irma and Harry got over there. YN, are you okay? Yeah, no, I'm fine, you said as you moved your hand, revealing a tiny cut and not a wound. What? How? It doesn't matter right now, we need the staff. They both nodded as you stayed with Harry as he fought Jackson. Make the trade, or walk the plank. Everyone unsheathed their swords. Let's go, bring it on. Bring it on, it's going down. Time is running out. Let's go. Bring it on. Bring it on, it's going down. Time is running out. Bring it on, it's going down. Let's go pound for pound, we're prepared to stand around. Put your swords up. Put 'em up. It's going down. Mallory had given Irma a fake staff and had bombed everyone with smoke bombs as they made their way through the tunnel. Mallory looked back at you with tears in her eyes, before she kicked down the bridge that connected the vessel to the tunnel. And ran off. Everyone began singing a familiar song. Until something unexpected happened. YN, 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 YN. What's her name? What's her name? What's her name? Say it louder. Everyone had gone home that night, but you couldn't stop thinking about that moment after you had been brutally stabbed by someone who later on became shark food, how it healed you, how it talked to you, and most importantly, what was it? Needless to say, you were confused and torn. Could it be a power that you got from your father, or could it have been a demon? For all you cared, it was gone and you wouldn't want it any other way. Or so you thought. Your paw. I was walking home as fast as I could. I didn't want any distractions, any surprise burglaries, or any contact with anything for that matter. You were alone in an alleyway as you leant up against the wall to catch your breath, when it happened. Hello YN, what was that? Where did that come from? I pushed myself off the wall as I looked around frantically to find the owner of the voice. Who are you? I asked, quite skeptical. Well, we are Venom. What did they mean we? Show yourself. I said, mentally cursing to myself under my breath for almost stuttering. I would never show fear to a complete stranger. Then something incredibly strange and extremely disturbing happened. A black monster-like thing came out from your back, made of a black goo kind of texture. I slapped my hand across my mouth to prevent the scream, trying to itch its way out of my lips. I slid down the alleyway wall. Yeah, my team was made of dead pirates with barnacles, tentacles, hell, even a shark, but this. He had shining white golden teeth. And that full-on shocked me, sideways oval eyes that were almost the same shade as his teeth but a slightly gray color. His skin was slightly separated. His long pink tongue. The discomfort in my eyes soon changed to curiosity. No one in particular. What do you want from me? You asked, completely confused but also quite intrigued. And what he responded with shocked you as chills ran down your back. I need a host, a strong one. Like Eddie. You swore you saw a tear. Me killed Eddie and I regret it. I needed a new host, ruthless yet kind. Whoa kind. You got the wrong person, buddy. There's not a nice bone in my body. He just looked you in the eyes, staring into your soul. You're lying to yourself, ya know. You care. And it appears you care. A little bit more about a certain someone. You gulped. I don't care about anyone or anything. Especially not Harry. How did you know I was talking about the boy with the eyeliner? He said, quirking his non-existent eyebrow. You gulped. How do you know that? Mentally cursing yourself for stuttering. We are connected now. You and me, we are. Venom. Feature if you don't want that. I walked into the store when I heard the little bell ding as I walked in and saw some wannabe rogue tormenting her and Dizzy just shaking in obvious fear. Poor kid. Can I eat him? You just shook your head vigorously. What, no? Only way bad guys, okay. And he's not that bad of a guy. You replied. You saw him pull a gun out and aim it at Dizzy's head. Oh no, he did not. Venom. On it. There should be a GIF or video here. Update the app now to see it. Skip to 111 and pretend it's Dizzy's shop. YN. What was that? She asked as I just shook my head and replied. I have a parasite. She just stood there and watched in both awe and terror. Anyways, highlights can wait. I'll see ya soon. You said as you ran out the store and then heard Venom. Dizzy ran out after you. Hey, YN, that was against the rules, ya know. You just snickered and replied. Since when did I ever obey the rules? You said before running of Parasty. Time skip. How am I going to get back, KK? Oh, I know. What do you know? We can steal a motorcycle. During the short time you and Venom had known each other, you had learned to communicate through your mind, ya know. So people wouldn't think I was crazy. There's one down this alleyway. How do you know? While I was trying to find a host, I stayed here for a while. That makes sense. You turned to the corner and just like he had said, there it was. It was a decent motorcycle. You hopped on it and threw the helmet to the side. You flipped the engine switch and revved the engine for the fun of it before putting your feet on the side and twisting your hand as you took off down the road. You took some shortcuts to get back home quicker. Yeah, last time I was late, Mum didn't feed me for a week. You took a left and got onto a main road. That was when you saw two bikes coming your way, and before you could turn away, they came speeding at you as they hit your back and threw you against the floor with all of your bones cracked. Skip to 334. There should be a GIF or video here. Update the app now to see it. Nothing to see here. You chuckled as everyone ran away from you. You smiled at this since it still meant you had scared people like you used to. That was quite the show. You heard slow clapping. Hello, Hooky. So, what was that? He asked, walking closer to you as you just shrugged. Oh, the usual murder, ya know, you said with a normal expression on your face. He just stood in disbelief and cleared his throat. So anyways, have you even eaten? You thought about it for a second before you realized no, you haven't. And wait, why are you being so nice to me? Wait, are you afraid? He just laughed. I don't get afraid, darling, but I bet I could make you scream, he said, brushing his hook through your hair and down to your face as he stared into your eyes he adored. That's cute. He just smirked at you. Ye think I'm cute, lass, he said, lifting your chin up further with his hook. PFF'd, if anything you're worse than Venom. He just stood there for a second. Who's this Venom? he asked with a hint of jealousy. And by you, of course. Oh, right. As soon as you were about to run away, Venom engulfed you until your eyes were replaced with his pearly white eyes. Harry visibly gulped. He had seen him from a distance but never up close. Hello, Hook, Venom said with a threatening glare. Hiya, Venom, he said, covering up his fear as he tried to hide away his eyes for Venom's. You know, Host thinks about you a lot. She thinks you're cute. You gasped in disbelief. Venom, how could you? Venom retreated and was met by a visibly mad you. Well, you do think I'm cute, lass. Fit no, you said, faking a laugh to hide your embarrassment. If I give her chocolate then y'all tell me the truth. Alright, he said, reaching into his pocket and grabbing a chocolate bar as he handed you the chocolate. Now, he started as he watched you run away with his food, a small smirk across his lips and a weird feeling in his chest. She's so funny. Before shouting out so you could hear him, ya can't run from me, lassie. I ran straight after her and she practically flew through the alleyways. I saw her jump into a random apartment, so I followed her through the window. She jumped onto a pipe and swiftly ran across it, and right before she jumped into the room and left through the window, I followed suit. Where are ye, lass? I called you. As she came out from behind the curtain. Come on in, she said in a regal voice. I curtsied. When did ya build this? And how? I asked her, looking over to her direction. Well, I got the furniture from my mum, considering that when she got placed into this hellhole she requested everything. And, considering she was still a ruler at this time, they had no choice but to obey, and when she found out her accommodation didn't have enough room, I stole a couple things with the help of my colleagues. I'm sure you know them. Anyways, she walked into another room and I was shocked. She had a L-shaped black leather couch seated in the middle of the room with a gray wolf's skin rug and pictures of the different elements on the walls. She had this weird glowing cube thing at the back of the room and a huge TV. How'd she use that with no Wi-Fi? Anyway, that was a question for another day. There was a staircase that led up to her room, I think, that covered only half of the room so you could see up there. And she had a huge wardrobe filled with clothes. Not bad for a princess, I said, smirking. She was halfway to the couch when she heard me and slowly whipped her head around, her eyes glowing. FC. It's ruler to you, Hooky, she said, now being the one smirking. I decided not to retaliate, considering I knew she'd avenue a comeback. She plopped down on the couch and groaned. I followed her, admiring all the picture frames of little YN with her mum when she was child. She looked so happy. But that moment ended when I heard the click of a button. I turned around to see she had turned on the TV and was growling at it. It had a video of Mallory and the king on it. Stupid princess. She scowled, throwing FS in her mouth and chewing it. Couldn't agree more, lassie, I said, hopping over the couch and landing next to her. Ya know, lass, that could be me and you someday. She spat out her FD she had in her mouth and turned to me. Anger and amusement in her eyes. Never in a million years, Hook. I chuckled. Oh yeah. I smirked. Oh yeah. Well then, tag, I said, tapping her on the shoulder and hopping off the couch, running over to the window and pushing the carpet out the way. I looked back to see her charging towards me. I smiled as I jumped down to the street below. She continued to chase me until we were in the market. Everyone stared at outrunning figures in terror. I ran past his alleyway and pushed over a couple of people until I hit a dead end. I was about to turn around until I felt a hand on my shoulder. Tag, Hooky. I could feel her smirk from behind. I laughed at this. We should do this more often, mate, I said. She looked like she was thinking. Before replying, I'd like that. As we were running, we had run past many people, knocked over carts, and ran through what we considered roads. I didn't even know where I was going. I just kept running until I heard a familiar voice yell, YN, come here. I sighed. I guess the fun's over. I walked over to where the fish shop was and dropped my sword in the bucket. Yes, Irma, I said, walking further into the shop and standing on a stool, and walked over the counter to the other side as I turned to face Irma. You and I, she started as she turned on the TV showing Mallory and Brent on the screen talking about something called the cotillion. Yeah, no idea what that was. Are gonna sneak into that boat and takes what's rightfully ours. she said, smirking as she lifted up Maul's incantation book with the dragon symbol. I joined in with her smirk as we both said in sync. What's my name? The words YN and Irma were shouted across the bar, and you just then thought about where Harry was. Almost on cue the doors were pushed open. Speak of the devil and he shall appear. He walked up to the sea counter and held his hand out in front of me. I just looked at him innocently, tilting my head slightly. He just gave me the "Are you serious?" right face, so I just pouted and reached into my jacket. I pulled his hook out as he took it from my hand. We looked into each other's eyes when our hands collided. It was like electricity. It all ended when Irma cleared her throat as we then realized that everyone, and I mean everyone, was staring at us. He just smirked while I just snarled. So, when you two lovebirds finish whatever that was, we can move on with the plan, she said, stifling a laugh. I just scoffed and walked off. Damn, Harry said, but I couldn't hear cause I was too far out of earshot, but that doesn't mean a certain parasite couldn't. Girls got ass, Irma said as Venom chuckled. Now that Capon I can certainly agree with. Oh boy did Venom have some news, but who to tell? That was the problem. I kept on walking until I had bumped into someone. Oh hey Dizzy, I said, looking down at her. Hey YN, she replied in her normal preppy voice. Whatcha up to, kid? Why are ya down here of all places? I gestured to the dark area we were in and all of the trash and pirates. Oh, Granny sent me to supplies from the shops. This was the best I could find. I just nodded to her reply as my eyes scanned the shops. Wait here, I said to her as I strutted over to the shop and picked up a van from the ground. I threw it into the corner, and while she was distracted I picked out some of the fabric she was selling and walked back over to Dizzy. Here, I know what'd happen if you went back empty-handed. She smiled and hugged me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I nodded and replied, no problem. Kid, now if you'll excuse me, I have places to be, as I held my hand up in the gooey black liquid formed a net sort of shape and hoisted me up onto the building next to us. She looked up in awe. I did an army salute and walked off. She was in shock but then came to her senses. Oh shoot, I gotta get home, she said, running off at the speed of light. I was just walking along the roof as I ran across pipes back and forth and back and forth. But as I was about to jump to the other building, I slipped of the pole I was holding onto. I managed to grab onto the side with one hand, but I was slipping slowly. Venom, I shouted. Yeah, help me, I said while trying to grip with my other hand, fighting with the air. Sorry, I need more food. You're on your own, kid. I scowled in annoyance as worry filled my face. I looked down and chances of survival was slim, but I took my chances. After all, I'm YN Hart. You screamed as you fell down, initially accepting your fate of either Hughie injuries or even death. You jumped anyway and managed to land in a garbage bin. It was full of junk, not in bags. You may have broken your ankle and arm, but overall you were fine. You crawled out of the garbage bin to find yourself all muddy and unable to walk on one foot. Plus the exception of a BR growling from behind you as you looked back and saw a kid, roughly about 4 years old. He was a little boy and had a sour look on your face that almost made you burst out laughing, but you kept your mean demeanor. Remembering what your mother told you. Trust no one, my dear. You just looked down. Quote, what kid? He said nothing as he walked closer and punched me in the gut. Ow, what the freak, kid? He grabbed a hold of the wallet on the side of my belt as I growled at him. You yanked his hand before he could run. Let me go. You didn't, instead your grip tightened. Give it. You yanked it out of his hand as you almost put it back in your holder when he started crying. Peef, pathetic. P please. It's for my mum, she's sick. Your eyes softened. You knew what this felt like. You looked down at the wallet in your hand and threw it on the ground in front of you. Keep it, you said coldly but with a hint of kindness in your face. Really, thank you. You just nodded. Sure, kid. But rob me again and your mum will never see the light of day again. You smiled and he nodded slowly as he ran away. Well, I guess it's time. Revenge is closer than I thought. Tiny time skip since I hate them heart. We were all at the boat and everyone was everywhere. We were prepping the boat to get ready to set sail after you and Irma take down the boundary. But what I didn't tell you was that when you had slipped down from the And after having a slight sympathetic moment with the young boy you had come across a little, stray. None other than the infamous King Benny Boo. Turns out the kid had been a scam that had been sent to spy on you to see what you were like. What was that supposed to mean? So long story short, you had found him hiding between two bins. The look on his face was priceless. When you had managed to tie him up and knock him out with your mystical powers. Needless to say, Irma adores you. You had overused your body through the past days. You were extremely powerful, but everyone had their limits, especially you. Mystical powers was extremely tiresome and yours was extremely mentally and physically draining. Irma had allowed you to take a well-needed break considering you and Irma had to swim all the way through the boundary and to a boat on the other side of the freaking country. I got up from my bed and walked over to my desk after stretching a bit. Irma said to wear something nice, Sue. I grabbed my sewing kit and put all the fabrics to the side of my desk and put on my fingerless gloves, not exactly helpful when working with needles, but oh well. I placed the fabric under the sewing machine and began sewing. I added different random things to the dress halfway through making it and eventually pinned it all together, sand sewed it shut. You can choose, but look how pretty these dresses are. Sorry if you don't like them. OKKK. Time check is 9:45, so 15 minutes to do the rest of, well, everything. You styled your hair into HS and quickly shoved on your heels. Not me fangirling on shoes, you ready loss. Harry stood in the doorway looking at you, in a blush present on his cheeks to his ears. Yep, I believe so. You said, patting down your dress before looking up at him. I was thinking that I could sail my vessel out, you know, to get there. He thought about it for a second. Good idea, lass. He meant it as you smiled and walked up to him as you pulled down his hat to cover his eyes before commenting. Take a picture, it lasts longer. You heard him chuckle as you walked behind him. See ya so. On pretty boy. You couldn't see but a faint blush tinted his cheeks as he turned and walked the other way. You look amazing, Irma said as you turned to see her wearing a turquoise dress with pearls and gold lace. You too, you said, running up to her and embracing her. So, is everything ready? She smirked as she called out. Raise the flag. Now it was your turn to smirk as you lifted her hand as a familiar beam appeared in the sky. Let the red flag fly. Almost immediately your team started to emerge from underwater. Welcome back, Cap'n. You smiled and walked over to them. It's good to be back. You hugged your team and then you were left with your first mate. Billy. Yes, your favorite. You did well taking care of them while I was gone, you know. He fake gasped. A compliment from the YN heart. Harry has changed you. Your smile faltered. You internally screamed. Before you could react, venom slid out your hand and then proceeded to laugh. Sorry, my favorite host, but I had to tell someone. He slithered back into you before you could do anything or hurt him. You turned back to Billy and hugged him. You were about to walk away but not before saying, "Oh, and Billy." You turned smiling warmly at him. He returned the smile expecting a raise. You're on Kraken feeding duty for a week. You're turned around to walk to the edge of the boat. See ya soon. Irma turned to follow you to your vessel. You were to keep it submerged for the time being. You jumped over the side and gestured for Irma to follow and she did. See you on the other side, boys. Time skip. Irma was still underwater as you swam under the boat to get to the emergency hatch that is used for when boats tip over. You opened it up and crawled inside. You heard the cheers of people on Boa Road and it made you stick to your stomach. This traitor was getting praised, and for what? You knew Brent wasn't out yet considering you hadn't seen him when you got there. Now you were guessing the RO's were close to where you were since they wouldn't want anyone seeing the groom and bride. You rolled your eyes. Let's just get this over with, you thought. You grabbed a hold of a pan and dropped it as you hid behind a wooden crate at the back. Someone came rushing down and you could only hope it was the prince. And as you had predicted, it was. Who's there? He said. Oh, no one important. Just me, you said, emerging from behind the crate. YYN, how'd you get here? You just giggled and pulled out a book as your eyes glowed red. You looked at his before reciting an incantation. He tried to run out the door, but you had gotten there first and locked it with mystical powers. He turned to look you in the eyes. By the power of the ocean, love is one and love is free. His eyes glowed blue. as you ran out of his eyeshot and rushed behind him to blindfold him. The way that incantation worked was that the person that you wanted them to fall in love with had to be the first person he saw. You walked out as you jumped back through the hatch being swallows by the water. It's done, you said, and Irma smiled. What would I do without you? You smiled. You had never had this kind of friendly relationship with anyone before. Not even Hunter and Elijah. Anyways, as you swam away you heard all the gasps and cries of the people on the boat. Well, looks like Irma did it. You swam back and peered over the side of the boat hanging on the ladder. You dried the water of your dress and it looked good as new. I'm so sorry, Mallory. She was stood there with tears in her eyes. But when you didn't tell me you loved me, I finally understand. We were never meant to be together. You never told me you loved me because you knew that we were never meant to be together. Mallory couldn't hold in as a few stray tears fell from her face. Did you go back for her? She asked, shaking. You felt kinda bad, but then again that's how you felt. He didn't have to. I dove through the boundary before it closed, Irma smiled. I'm an excellent swimmer, she added. You are, Brent said, looking at her. Thank you, Irma giggled. Ew, love. If that's what it looked like, may God never give it to you. Irma handed Mallory her purse as she grabbed her hand. Listen, Mallory, I really wanna thank you. I do. For everything. Thank you so much, she cried as she hugged Mallory as Mallory just stood there speechless. Brent came up from behind her. Don't you see, Mallory? You were right, you knew that we weren't meant to be together. That's why you never told me you loved me, thank you. Mallory but couldn't. We're here for you, Mallory, Eva said, coming up from behind her. Not too thrilled I risked my life for him. TCH, you weren't there for me. Brent took Irma's hand as they began dancing around. Everyone cleared a way for them. They ended the dance as Harry swam up behind you without you knowing. He looked at your face and saw happiness while you watched Irma dance. The exiles walked up the steps with Mallory comforting her. It ended when his candlestick declared there be a grand reveal. It appeared to be a picture of Mallory in a disgusting purple dress and vibrant green eyes. With Brent and the sun behind her. Mallory gasped when she turned around. Brent did that? Mallory exclaimed. Yeah, he did, Eva replied. Mallory laughed slightly. Eva. They held hands as they walked down the steps. Ben's known who I was all along, she finished once they reached the bottom of the stairs. He loves the real you. Eva held a grip on Mallory. A true love. I think I just barfed in my mouth. Told you, Carl said. You smiled slightly at the boy's reply. Irma growled in anger as she turned to face Candleman. Cover that back up, she growled. I most certainly will not, he said with an angered face. Everyone gasped. Irma turned around a stuttering mess. Why don't you tell everyone the present you have for me, Brent? She said, clasping her hands together, hiding her rage. Brent came to his senses. I have an announcement. Irma will be joining the court tonight as my lady. The king stepped forward. Not now, Dad. Everyone was shocked by his sudden outrage. So is my gift to her. He turned to face Irma and she gave a look on encouragement. I'm bringing down the boundary once and for all. Irma smirked, turning around and looking at everyone's expressions. Fairy Godmother gasped, completely shocked. Everyone looked at everyone. Fairy Godmother, bring down the boundary. She just stood there. I most certainly will not. Brent looked outraged. You were impressed, but not by Brent. By your powers. I am your king, he shouted. Obey him, Irma argued. Ben's been spelled. Mallory figured it out. Finally, Irma found your incantation book, Eva added. Brent, look at me, Irma said, putting her fingers in a scissor motion pointing at her eyes than his. Mallory walked down as Irma turned to face her. Look at me. No, look at me. You love me, remember? No, you don't, Brent, look at me. Mallory said calmly as Irma tried to argue but failed to. Bring down the boundary now, Irma shouted at the fairy. I do not take orders from you, she said, pointing her finger at Irma. Brent, I never told you that I loved you, because I thought that I wasn't good enough. And I thought that it was only a matter of time before you realized that yourself, but Brent, that's me. I'm part Outcast Isle and part Avaloria. Irma grabbed Ben's hand. Brent, eyes over here. He looked over to Irma until Mallory spoke again. Brent, you've always known who we were and who we can be. Irma butted in. Don't listen to her. But he kept his attention on Mallory. But Brent, I know what love feels like now. She sighed. Brent, of course I love you. Brent, I've always loved you. She said, grabbing his neck as she kissed him. You were gonna puke. Oh God, that disgusting. Harry chuckled. You turned around startled. When did you? He put his finger to you. Our lips making you blush from the sudden contact. Shush, just watch the show, and who knows, maybe that'll be us. You nodded and turned around. Wait, OMG Harry, just you know what, you'll deal with that later. Everyone was weeing and pouting. They all heard slow clapping. They turned around to see. They all gasped. YN. Mallory breathed out. You chuckled. Miss me princess. Miss me princess. Everyone stared at you in horror. I guess not even I can break the oh so powerful true love's kiss. You chuckled, giggled. Why? You just stared at her with a blank expression. Why? Oh well, when why? Oh, you decided to get all loved away with the Prince of Avaloria. You left me and the rest of the kids on the outcast isle to rot. I expected this from you, Mallory, but Eva, you looked over at her, tears threatening to fall from your eyes. YN, I'm so sore. You held your hand up. Stop, cause if you continue then I'm gonna feel guilty for something I didn't even do. I mean, you seriously forgot about me. You sobbed out. I mean, it's not like I don't have any feelings. They all just stared at you with guilt and sorrow. You looked over at Brent and he just looked shook and looked extremely guilty. And it's all your fault. Still looking at Brent. If you had never taken away my friends, then I wouldn't have had to do this, not like I wasn't going to do it anyway. You huffed and you crossed your arms. Anyways, enough with the sob fest. Boys, get them. On cue, your team emerged from the side, scaring everyone as they helped their swords up to their necks. You move, you said coldly. Irma smiled and walked beside me. YN, Irma, you don't have to do this, I've been there. I know you can change, Mallory said, walking closer to us. Irma just scoffed and jumped of the boat. You gasped and looked down. But after seeing her locket glow, you knew she'd be okay. Irma, Mallory said as Irma emerged. Come on, Mallory, fight me, she said as Mallory got really mad and walked over to an open space on the boat with less people as purple gas surrounded her. She turned into a purple dragon with green eyes, she roared. Whoa, single quote, you seeing this venom? You said out loud, making everyone look at you. Intel, Brent roared like a freaking beast. TCH figures. He jumped into the water without warning after giving Carl his jacket. Well, guess it's our turn, Venom, you said. You can swim, right, big guy? You chuckled. You underestimate me, Squirt, he said. Never, buddy. Black goo covered your body as it took over your head, changed into a huge alien with sharp point teeth and white oral eyes. Everyone gasped and stood back. What wimps, you chuckled from inside. Half of him dissolved, showing half of your body. So, can you swim? He TCHED and jumped in after he covered you up. Guys, Mallory, stop, Brent shouted. I know you're better than this. Irma, I know you're better than this. YN, you don't want to do this. You looked at him and sighed. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I just want. You thought for a second. I just want. Everyone looked at you, some in confusion, some in guilt, and the rest in sadness and pity. I don't know what I want. Irma looked at you in sadness. I've never loved anyone before. I thought that all this time I wanted revenge on Mallory and the others, but I don't know what I want. I looked up at Harry as I stared him in the eyes, his ocean blue eyes that remind me of home. I looked down at the water again. I want peace. They all looked at you, the king and ruler, standing on the edge of the boat. This whole time I thought that villains ruled and that peace wouldn't be possible, but at the end, it is so worth it. No, that's a lie. They would never let that happen. They'd lock us up the second they got us alone. But they don't need to know, I know that. Yes, that's it. Peace, Brent said as Mallory roared in agreement. You fake smiled to throw them of their track as venom retracted back inside you and you began to tread the water around you. Irma, I know you're better than this, just hand it over and everything will be fine. Brent told her, looking at her. She hesitated for a moment as she looked down at her shell and ripped it of her neck. He swam closer to her as she dropped it into his hand. She had tears in her eyes. She looked back at you with a smirk as she submerged herself underwater. This will all work out one way or another. Because hearts always win. Once everyone had gotten back onto the boat, Irma had swum back to the boundary, or so they thought. You would never tell Harry and Gil, but you and Irma had a plan, to make sure you and the rest of the Outcast Isle could leave that hellhole and turn Avaloria into the new Outcast Isle, but not for villains, oh no. For the puny Princess Revolting. You turned around. To see the royal family and fairy godmother behind you. Yes, you replied, getting really awkward. Thank you, for showing us that not every rogue is bad. Fairy godmother told you with a smile as you fake smiled back. Rogue, every rogue. My only crime was wearing LFC on a Sunday when I was 5. Thank you, you said, still holding the smile. From the moment I met you I knew you were good. Brent said, almost too excited as he grabbed your hands. He stayed there for about a good 5 seconds until a familiar hook tore his hand away. Now King Benny, don't go touching things that ain't yours. An all too familiar thick Scottish accent pounded from behind. Brent looked down. Oh right. No hard feelings, am I right? He smiled. Course Benny, he replied with sarcasm. So what now? Just then Mallory came back from the top of the stairs with Eva in that hideous purple dress with a new hairstyle and everything. Brent looked at her in awe. She went up to him as they kissed. Disgusting. You mumbled to Harry. He snickered. Bet it wouldn't be as bad if it were a Psy lassie. He looked down at you. In your wildest dreams, pretty boy, you said, walking. Just then everyone broke into a huge dance. Brent, looking back at yesterday, thought I gave it everything. But there's still so much road ahead of me. Mallory, when I looked into your eyes, I guess I didn't recognize who we are and all that we can be. When she said that, you and Harry looked back at each other and looked each other in the eyes. Mallory and Brent, sometimes it's hard to find yourself, but it's worth it in the end. 'Cause I'm your heart is where it all begins. They looked over to you and Harry standing next to each other with your fingers brushing up against each other as Mallory smirked at Brent. As Brent looked back at Mallory, figuring out her plan. They interlocked fingers as they ran up to you both as Mallory dragged you one way and Brent dragged Harry the other way. You both looked to find each other as they dragged you to the middle. Everyone began singing again as they pushed you forward. Everyone minus Harry and YN. We gotta be bold. We gotta be brave. We gotta be free. We gotta get loud, making the change. You gotta believe. Whoa. They pushed you into the middle as you collided with a muscular chest, just as you were about to fall, their arm wrapped around your back. As you squinted your eyes open to see who you had been so graciously pushed into. Cheeky little, may I have this dance, princess? Harry smirked. Screw it. Yeah, why not? His smirk grew to his R's as he spun you up as he rested his hand on your waist and your hand on his shoulder. Everyone continued to sing. Everyone minus Harry and YN. We'll look deep inside and we'll rise up and shine. We can be bold. We can be brave. Let everyone see. Everyone, it starts with you and me. Whoa. Hey, it starts with you and me. Whoa, it starts with you and me. Harry and YN, there's something special that I've learned. Mallory and Brent, it's together we can change the world. By this point both you and Harry and Brent and Mallory were dancing in the middle of the boat with everyone on the sidelines watching as the water from the ground soaked the bottom of your dress as you glided across the floor with Harry. Harry and YN, everybody's got something that they can bring. When you take a look inside yourself, do you wish that you were something else? Mallory and Brent, but who you are is who you need to be. Just then Eva and Doug walked up to the dance floor as Eva took you away from Harry and Mallory away from Brent as we finished the dance as you grabbed Lonnie and Mallory grabbed Jane. The boys went to the side as you, Eva, Mallory, Lonnie, no Jane all formed a circle with you holding Eva and Mal's hands. You, Mallory, Eva, Lonnie, Jane, sometimes it's hard to find yourself, but it's worth it in the end. 'Cause I'm your heart is where it all begins. Everyone made their way to the dance floor as everyone began performing in the middle of the stage as everyone watched from the sidelines. Girls did twirls, guys did flips. Harry did a weird front flip and landed on his back as he pulled himself up by bending his arms and putting them beside his head as he kicked himself up and did a little twirl as he walked off. Everyone cheered. He smirked at you as you locked eyes with him. Alright Hook, it's on. Everyone, we gotta be bold, we gotta be brave, we gotta be free. We gotta get loud, making that change, you gotta believe. Whoa, we'll look deep inside and we'll rise up and shine. We can be bold, we can be brave, let everyone see it starts with you and me. Whoa, whoa, hey, it starts with you and me. Whoa, whoa, hey, it starts with you and me. Just then you walked up to the front. Sorry if you can't dance, but I feel like everyone can in some way or another. Everyone was singing the chorus when you walked up and did a round off, cartwheel with a back on. D-spring and then a back flip, but with your legs in a split sort of shape. Everyone stopped to look at you as you landed. You did a back walk over onto the floor and then lifted yourself up from your toes. You did a high kick and from there a pirouette or a fouette. Then you ended with your iconic YN pose. From there everyone ran into the middle and began singing again. Everyone was splashing water and having so much fun. Everyone, if we all can do our part, we know that it can be the start to bring about the difference that we need. Yeah, I promise we can work this out. I promise we can see it through. Don't ya know it's up to me? It's up to me and you. Everyone put their hand in the middle and lifted it up as we finished the last line. Everyone started dancing around again. Everyone, we gotta be bold, we gotta be brave, we gotta be free, wanna be free, we gotta get loud, making that change, you gotta believe. Whoa, we'll look deep inside and we'll rise up and shine. We can be bold, we can be brave, let everyone see. It starts with you and me. Whoa, whoa, hey, it starts with you and me. Whoa, whoa, hey, it starts with you and me. The song stopped as everyone gradually stopped dancing. You walked around the boat trying to find Harry. Harry, you shouted. Yeah, lassie, he replied. I think we should go, you said as he nodded as a yes. Hey, why? And you turned to see Mallory and Eva. You're not going back already, are you? Eva said with sadness in her voice. Yeah, the outcast isle may not be your home anymore, but it's where I belong, so I guess so. Eva didn't reply and just hugged you. Now I'm gonna have to miss you all over again, Eva said, sobbing. You hesitantly hugged her back. I know, but maybe we'll see each other again. Mallory held Eva's shoulder. Stop hogging her, it's my turn. You chuckled slightly. Right, Eva giggled. As soon as your embrace broke, Mallory grabbed you and bear hugged you. I'm gonna miss you so much. You almost felt sad. I mean, I guess in the end it was never their fault and they were just trying to live their lives and you just had to accept it. I know, but hey, once this whole war is resolved maybe I'll see you again. But I'm going to go before I get too tempted to stay. The three of you laughed at that. Come on princess, let's go. You turned around. That's ruler to you, Hook, you said as you jumped off the boat. He followed suit. Oh, you didn't think this was the end, did you? 15. Irma, you shouted whilst looking for the cove that you and Irma had found while trying to find a way out of the boundary together. YN, Irma said, emerging from underwater in her octopus form. That's the cove, hey, you said, swimming up to her. Oh, thank God, I thought you'd never get here, she said coldly. Probably because you made her wait for like a whole hour. Well, I'm sorry, I got a bit lost. You swam up to one of the rocks and sat down. So, when do we strike? You smirked. Patient young one, our time will come, she said in a regal voice, making you laugh. I have a feeling this is gonna be a fun week. She smiled for a while now, but I'm a bit too dumb to date her. Plus I'm pretty sure she likes someone else. YN's shy friend Elijah. They're made for each other. Meanwhile, with the rogue kids, Mal's Pov, this is what we've been waiting for. We had just finished a song and dance routine with the Outcas T-Isle and we were about to nominate the kids we had chosen to take back to Avaloria with us. Eva walked up to the front holding her form in her hand with a huge smile on her face. She hung her hands from the edge of the railing and started. First, I would like to begin with the granddaughter of Lady Tremaine, daughter of Drizella, my sweet, sweet friend, my Dizzy. Dizzy squealed in happiness. Everyone cheered for her as she ran up the stairs and almost crashed into Eva before giving her a bone-crushing hug. Eva closed her eyes and squeezed Dizzy back. Carl was up next as he unfolded his paper. Next, son of Smee. Come on, Squeaky, he said, motioning for him to come over as Squeaky gave his dad a look that Smee returned with an encouraging One is Squeaky hesitantly walked over to Carl. I saw his brother reach out to him. Everyone cheered and clapped for him. Carl hugged Squeaky as he looked back at his brother with sadness. I heard Jackson. And no way we're splitting up the twins, so get over here, Squirmy. Come on, he said, kneeling and patting the ground with a huge smile on his face. Squirmy looked at his dad as his dad made a motion for him to go. He walked over to Jackson and hugged him. I guess it's my turn now. And last, but certainly not least, we all picked this girl because we all agreed she could use a little bit of fairy godmother's goodness. Class, give it on up for Mr. Facilier's daughter Celia. I shouted as I pointed at her. She did a little twirl. I'm back. Everyone cheered as she walked up the steps. Okay guys, pack your stuff cause we will be back to pick you up next week. I said, excited. They nodded and ran off. We all walked down and headed to the limo. We got in, and once we opened the boundary we had gotten the limo through the boundary once it was out to close. I saw someone from the reflection of the window push their hand through it. I immediately got out, recognizing who it was. Hades. I am a god. I don't belong here, he shouted, trying to push his way out. Purple smoke began covering me as I transformed into my dragon form. Hades' eyes widened. I began blasting him with air as he pushed me back with his crystal. He was drowning my power so quickly, it hurt. I roared into his face, pushing his back, sending him flying. I flexed back down and back into my human form. Mallory. I heard Eva shout as she ran over to me. Are you okay? Brent asked me, holding my waist. And no. I could feel my power slipping away. I cried as he helped me walk back into the car, where I rested my head back until we had gotten back to Avaloria to be met with a crowd. A very angry and upset Audrey, and of course her crazy grandmother. I was guessing she was mad because of the engagement, but anyways. Brent had helped me out the car as I wobbled my way into the castle. I walked in and immediately speed walked as fast as I could into my room. When I had gotten there was something on my desk. It looked like Uma's shell. I walked over to it and grabbed it. How'd it get here? I sat on my bed trying to find out how this had gotten here and why someone would put it here. Then it hit me. When Irma swam away, the boundary was closed. She never went back in. I saw Harry and YN's team go back into the boundary, but oh crap. YN didn't go back either. I ran out my room and shouted as loud as I could. Brent, I screamed as I heard heavy footsteps run through the hallway. Are you okay? Are you hurt? I sighed as he panicked. I'm fine, but Avaloria might not be. Guarantee the safety of Avaloria. And I think that there can't be any more going in and out, she finished as everyone lowered their heads. I think that we have to close the boundary forever. They all nodded except for Brent. He looked up with sadness in his eyes. He shook his head. No, he said, turning around. Son, his father called out. He walked away as Mallory followed him. Brent, hey, I do not want to take away your dream because it was so beautiful, she said, looking into his eyes. And it is why I fell in love with you. But as king and as ruler, what's our duty? She asked. To protect Avaloria, he said as his voice cracked slightly. Mallory nodded with tears in her eyes. She kissed him on the cheek. Well done, Mallory. You made the right decision, the former ruler nodded. You will be a great ruler. Fairy godmother added. Thank you. Meanwhile in the ocean, well, I found her. You said, looking back at Irma, who was buying her nails. Good. You're ready. Never been more ready in my life. Quote. 3 days later, you and Irma had a plan for when Mallory came back. The only problem was you had absolutely no idea when that was, and so that's slightly complicated things, but it would all be fine considering you both had exceptional powers. I have an idea, you said, swimming up to Irma, who was getting her outfit ready. About what? Irma asked as she turned around. You hopped onto the rock she was standing on as you grabbed your little bag and popped it into one of your pockets. How about we do a lap round the Outcast Isle, see if we can find anything suspicious, you said while turning around as you both began to jump across the rocks of the cove until you came to an opening between two large rocks. From there you could see the glowing bridge and the closed of Outcast Isle. That sounds like a decent idea. Well then let's do this, Irma said, jumping into the water as she submerged and her pearl glowed. She sped of, oh, it's on. You said, laughing as you dived into the water after her and used your FC power blasts to push you further into the water to follow her. You had both reached about where the bridge was until you heard the oh-so-familiar Scottish laugh. You were listening to their conversation intently, hoping to catch a bit of what they were saying. No, you heard Mallory squeal as some blue sort of crystal fell into the water below us. Irma looked back at you as you nodded at her and swam back a few feet while she created a small tornado-type boundary that she soon emerged from whilst holding the ember in her hand. Mallory looked at her in shock and despair, as she held onto Jay's shoulder. While she was doing that, you swam underneath the bridge and emitted FC to your hands and floated up, landing silently behind them. "Hi boys," you said as they turned to face you. Mallory gasped. Harry pointed his hook at you and chuckled. As he held his hook out to you and you gripped it tightly and smiled. While Irma climbed back onto the platform and Gil brought her into a bone-crushing hug. "Welcome back," Harry said to you as he turned to stand behind you, with Irma and Gil on one side and you and Harry on the other and the exiles in the middle. "You guys swam off and forgot all about us," Gil said sadly. Quote, "And planning her revenge, no doubt," Mallory said bitterly. "It's not all about you, Mallory," Irma countered back. "We were looking for a hole in the boundary," you added on as Irma walked over to you. And Harry walked over to Gil with the boys on one side and the girls on the other. "Ya know to let everybody out," you finished. "And you know what we found, boys," Irma said, looking at the boys. "It's way better out there than we thought. There's this thing that looks like a furry rock called a coconut," she said, looking at Gil and Harry. "And fish so big you could dance on their backs," you said, crow. Sing your arms and looking over at Mallory with disgust. "And they've been keeping it all to themselves," you exclaimed. "Whatever, Irma, I need that to break a incantation," Mallory said, holding her hand out. "Cast by Audrey, Sleeping Beauty's daughter." What Carl said made you snicker. So the good guy's the bad guy," Irma said while you laughed. "Well, we might not give it back, see what ends," you said, holding your hand to the side as Irma plopped the ember into your hand. "Time for games, people's lives are in danger," Mallory shouted as Harry and Gil scoffed and laughed. "Guarantee us, that ever single rogue kid that wants to can get of the outcast isle," you said, walking over to the edge of the bridge. Mallory sighed sadly. "I can't do that," Mallory said as you scoffed. "Can't do that," you mumbled, walking over to the edge. "How about now?" you shouted as you put the ember over the edge, threatening to drop it. "Deal," Mallory shouted as you smirked. "Deal," she said calmly. "Just for fun you pretended to drop it." Eva shouted, making you look at her as you sighed and pulled it back up to your chest. You and the pirates laughed. "Her word is good," Eva said, talking out Mallory as Mallory held her hand out once again. You walked over to her. "I'll still keep this, for the time being. Because if you think I can trust you to save the world on your own," you scoffed. "Think again," you said, turning back around. "This is a job for pirates," Irma said as we all clapped our hands together. Harry fiddling with his hook. "We can always go back to hating each other when this is over," Jackson said, putting his hand on Maul's shoulder. Mallory sighed dramatically. "Fine," she glared. Then Mallory turned to the boys. "Where are our bikes?" he said with anger. "Oh, we crashed them," Gil said as Harry showed the explosion with hand movements as you laughed at this, making him look back at you and smile. Irma saw this. "All right, lovebirds," she giggled, making you glare at her and Harry chuckle. "Here's a thought," Eva said, walking in the middle. Celia walking behind her. "We could try to be friends. Put our history behind us and celebrate our differences," she said as you smiled softly. "This is why you and Eva were the closest, since she was always so kind and mature." "Yeah," she said. "Who wants gum?" she asked. "Let's go," Irma said, walking ahead as everyone followed her. "No," she questioned. Mallory said, making Bus turn our attention towards her. "No, I'm in charge." "Let's go," she said. You scoffed at this and then turned back to Eva as everyone began to walk away. Eva plopped some gum in her mouth. "Can I have some?" you asked as she turned to you and smiled. "Yeah," she said, giving you a piece. "Thanks," you said, putting it in your mouth. "No problem." You nodded and ran off to Harry. "So wanna ride some big fish after this?" you asked him as he turned to look at you. Thought y'all would never ask, he said, making you laugh as you all walked of your Avaloria. Time skipped to Avaloria, when we had gotten into some sort of courtyard in front of a huge fancy building, but everyone there seemed to have been sleeping. Herculear. They're asleep, Eva pointed out, confusion in her voice. Everyone, she continued. I can't get Brent, Mallory said vaguely while walking ahead. Or Dizzy, or Doug, or Jane, Eva mentioned, and then Carl too. Signals out, he said. Is that Avaloria Prep? Celia pointed out while literally pointing to the building in front of us. Damn. Yeah, and when everyone wakes up you're gonna love it, Carl said, smiling in. Still trying to connect the rectangle thing in his hand to something called Wi-Fi. Celia stared in shock. Wow, you said, walking behind Celia. She turned to face you. She smiled brightly at you like she hadn't seen you 3 minutes ago. Come on kid, let's go and break this curse so we can finally hang out. You said, pretending to sound exhausted, which you kinda were. She sent you one of her signature smirks before grabbing your hand and practically dragging you across to where the others were. Everything is. Gil started. Freaky, Jackson said, accepting that to be what Gil said, but in fact it wasn't. Green, Gil said, catching Jackson off guard. You have leaves on your trees. And what are those colored things on the bushes? Gil asked, excited. Oh wow, they do have leaves. You ran over to them as you went over to Gil and Jackson. Flowers, Jackson said, clearly confused. Flowers are pretty. Now everyone was looking at you really confused. Well, except Irma, Harry and Celia. Cantaloupe, Gil exclaimed, grabbing a bowl of weird-shaped things and downing it. Why, and you have to try this, he said, holding out 2 for you. You shrugged as if you say, why not? Then you ate it. Your eyes practically rolled to the back of your head. Oh my God, this is amazing. And it's fresh. You chuckled as Gil nodded in agreement. We don't have any fresh fruit on the outcast aisle, remember? Said as Jackson turned back to the 2 of you. He looked at you with sympathy and also agony, since he had once been in that position. Meanwhile with Harry, I believe I deserve some compensation for my muscles. My while and my role in this endeavor, he said, making you snicker. You do, me not squashing you like a big, Jackson said, making you growl at him. Harry turned to look at you with a smirk. He's not scared of you, Jackson, you said, walking up to him. Guys, Mallory and Irma said at the same time, making the 3 of you look over to where they were. You scoffed and began walking. Then you heard Carl call for a dude, making you turn back in curiosity. You then saw the dog that had the ability to talk. Cool, dude, really? Carl said after dude had eaten someone's lunch. What, it wasn't me, I swear. A really high-pitched voice reached, making you cringe. Okay, it was me, he said in a calmer voice, making you take your hands away from your ears. Hey dog, do you know what happened here? You asked, walking back over to them and crouching down. Yup, Audrey showed up. She put everybody to sleep and then she turned some of them too. Just then Eva cut him off. Guys, Hannah, turned to stone. Everyone walked over to her while you were petting dude. Bro, how are you so soft? You asked. It's my talent, dude replied. I like you, dude. He looked up at you. Me too, heart. You picked him up and walked up to the others. Anyways, since we're here, let's check the school, you said, walking further away. No, Audrey went straight for the crown, so I think it's safe to awesome. That's she gonna go for Brent and his castle next. That's where we'll go. Mallory butted in. Says who? Irma said, walking up to her. Says me, Mallory replied with a glare, which Irma gladly returned. Says you, and that's supposed to mean something to us? You asked with a tired voice. Guys, Eva tilted her head in disappointment. You and Irma shook your heads. To the castle, Mallory said, walking over. Grunch, you said quietly, but dude, Harry and Irma heard you and all snickered. Harry shook his head, tched, and walked off. Why are we doing this again? You said, slowing down to Harry's pace. Honestly, at this point I don't even know, mate. You shrugged. As long as I get to go to sleep anytime soon, I'll be okay. You said as you guys walked side by side. Couldn't agree more, lass, he said, sliding an arm around your shoulder. Fish riding, here we come, I guess. In the castle, Brent, Mallory shouted for like the 5th time today, which was followed by dude laughing. Haha. This way, he said proudly. You were walking through the castle hallways looking for the king while you followed Dude while he was apparently sniffing him out. Brent could be asleep anywhere, Mallory sighed. Or turned to stone, Celia added, making you snicker. Nice, you said, fist bumping her where the others couldn't see. Okay, Eva said, glaring at Celia as you covered your mouth with you hand tryin'. G not to laugh as you looked over to see Celia doing the same. And then Mallory continued to scream. Here we go again, you said as Mallory walked off. Harry groaned. Can we leave yet? You turned to face him. No, not yet, he sighed. A little bit too dramatically as you scoffed and turned to follow Mallory. I got a scent, very pungent cologne. Easy to track. Follow me people, Dude said as he sat in front of us proudly. Really dude, that awesome, Jackson said. FYI I give great cuddles too, he said, looking over to you. You laughed slightly. Really? I never had a pet growing up. Well, except for the elk head in Dad's man cave, he said. But I questioned. He looked at you. Yep, he said back. You nodded. Hold up, Irma said, making everyone look over at her. What's this? She said, pointing to the marks on the wall. They looked like claw marks. Very large claws. Carl said. Any chance that was already there? You said, dumbfounded. Mallory sighed. And follow me, Dude said, sprinting off. Ben, Mallory screamed. You couldn't even keep count how many times she's screamed that before. Brent, she continued as she opened door by door until we came to a huge wooden purple door with gold lace. She pushed it open as you all followed in behind her with Dude trotting in front. Brent, she shouted. He's obviously not here, otherwise he would have replied by now. And unless he's role-playing as a frozen knight. Yeah, he's not here, you said as she sighed, silently agreeing. I bet you lost some sleep thinking about me on the loose. Irma said to Mallory. No. Dragons don't really lose sleep. I wonder what fried octopus tastes like. And speaking of that whole event that happened. What was that huge black monster thing? She said, talking about Venom. That doesn't concern you. Truth is, when you and Irma had found the island, you allowed Venom out of your body to go exploring since he needed human flesh and you didn't have anyone to eat. Except Irma, but she was your best friend. Well, minus Venom. You told him to meet you in Avaloria and you knew he would turn up when needed. See, a small part of him stayed with you if you were in danger, yo. You could just say his name and he'd be back. Okay, why do we not do this? Eva said, slipping in between us. We're celebrating our differences. You all looked over to Mallory. I believe we're being challenged, Harry said, but you took no notice of it as you glared at Mallory. Let's split up and look for Audrey, Irma said, silencing Harry. That makes absolutely no sense, unless YN gives me my ember, she's going to incantation you. This made you kinda mad. Hey, it's not you ember, it's mine too, probably even more mine than it is yours in fact. Girls, Harry shouted as you heard metal clankin'. G as you looked up to see a knight glowing purple and holding its sword tight to his chest. We have a situation here, he said, looking down, up at you. You like a prince, Mallory, how about a knight in shining armor? Or knights? A voice called from inside. This made you laugh slightly. I like her already. I scanned to see who Mallory had brought with her until my eyes landed on a familiar girl. The one with the terrifying monster inside her. I hear her say, laugh. At what? I like her already. I smirked. Well, I like you too. With her by my side I could rule Avaloria and Brent would be mine. Let's do this. Guys. I'm pretty sure they're not supposed to do that, you said with confusion laced in your tone. Wait, do you guys have talking knights in your kingdom and didn't give us any? Rude much, you said while Harry just silently glared at you for being so oblivious yet adorable. The exiles watch your back, watch your back, watch your back, watch your back. We can counter. Their attack hit M till the armor cracks. Irma, this could get a little sticky. How to win this battle could be tricky, but I know the best way. YN fall back, let me lead. You hold the line and we'll bring them to their knees. Mallory, swords in the air, if you're with me. They got us outnumbered 1-50, but victory is ours cause I got a strategy. You take the left and the rest of you can follow me. Mallory, this is my team. Mallory, this is my turf. Eva, oh my gosh. Look guys, we've got bigger fish to fry. Put your differences aside cause right now we're on the same side until the night falls. Everyone we'll stay together, till the battle is done. Everyone watch your back, watch your back, watch your back, watch your back, we can counter their attack, hit 'em, till the armor cracks until the night falls. We're aligned, it doesn't mean that we're on the same side, watch your back, watch your back, watch your back, watch your back, hit 'em hard and hit 'em fast, they're too heavy to react. The knights kept backing everyone into the middle of the room as they all grabbed swords from the wall. Irma threw one over to you and you nodded back at her as if to say, thank you. The knights all moved in the same way, one foot in front of the other. It didn't take long to realize their pattern. It was if they were dancing and you were pretty darn good at it. A knight then walked up to you, holding its sword out as you clashed against it with yours. And then they took another step. And so did you. It reminded you of a tango or waltz. You continued to walk one step, clash, one step and clash again until you decided. Screw it. You began kicking, beating and stabbing the armor, but the stabbing didn't really do much. But hey, at least Avaloria has a good blacksmith. Anyway, you were doing fine until some twerp kicked your sword out of your hand. You mentally scolded yourself. You, what now? You turned to see a knight towering over you. Okay, big guy. That's how we going to play. Let's play. You grabbed him by his head and smashed his into the wall. He stumbled a bit but regained posture as he gripped onto your head and kneed you in the stomach. God damn it, you thought to yourself while holding your stomach. That was a dirty move, you mumbled to both him and you. He then reeled his arm back to punch you, but you held your hand up and stopped his hand from hitting you a few centimeters from your face. Not this time, mate, not this time. You then pushed him through the wall, and then another wall and then another, and you get it. You then ran over to where Mallory and Irma were, next to the podium in the center. Mallory, this situation's getting kinda heavy, hold your weapons tight, keep 'em steady, cuz if we stick together we can make it out alive, I'll cause a distraction. You attack them from the side, and all my soldiers stand at the ready, we can cut 'em up like confetti, we'll hit 'em from the front, you counter from behind, don't forget the fate of Avaloria's on the line. Everyone, this is all out war. They got us outnumbered, the way the swords clash is the sound of the thunder. You took a sword from one of the soldiers at the back who hadn't come to life, fortunately. And you ran over to Carl, who was being crushed by one of the knight's swords. Carl, you shouted, making him turn to you. Heads up, you continued as you ran over to the knight and kicked it. With one leg as your hands held a fighting stance and one leg tucked against the other like a ballerina pose mid-air as it tumbled to the ground. You held your hand out for him to grab and he did. And you turned around, you realized you were right in front of a knight that was about to bring its sword down on you. Before a sword intercepted it, you turned to see Harry. No thank you, he said with sarcasm. Nope, you said, then running off, leaving him to giggle to himself. Mallory and we are not going under, we will never run for cover. Everyone, we battle for the victory and ride for each other until the night falls. Everyone, we'll stay together till the battle is done, back to back. Back to back, back to back, back to back, we can counter their attack, hit 'em till the armor cracks. You grab Ed onto one of the knight's arms and yanked it to the side. You then flipped yourself under its arm like a bar and pushed your hips up and kicked when you let go, bringing yourself down on top of another knight's head. You kicked it round its head before roundhousing the one next to it. You then turned to join the others in the middle, before you got kicked in the stomach. Everyone until the night falls. We're aligned, it doesn't mean that we're on the same side, back to back, back to back, back to back, back to back, hit 'em hard and hit 'em fast, they're too heavy to react. I'm so over this. You sighed, clutching your stomach, and you limped your was over as you jumped up onto the podium in the middle and the familiar FC glow transmitted from your hands. You stood in front of the knights as you began reciting. You said while throwing them all back as Mallory stood up and followed you. They stood up again, stumbling as Mallory reached and grabbed your hand. You looked over to her with confusion. She just nodded before mouthing something to you. You nodded back and turned to look at the knights once more. Mallory in YN suit of armor, strong and true, make this metal bust to move. The said knights then began dancing to the melody of the girls' voices. Everyone then stood up to the podium and began dancing. Mallory did this weird thing with her hips, Irma did a little dance with her sword, and you did a little twirl and swayed your hips a bit before hopping down while laughing. Carl then followed up with his hands out as he sang along. Eva grabbed your hand and pulled you towards the back as you all began singing, while swaying your heads back and forth. All the knights were dancing when Celia jumped in the middle while giggling and the boys were having so much fun. Dude was cheering in the background while you and the girls continued the melody and dancing a little differently. With you in the front along with Eva and Mallory and Irma behind you guys. Eva, until the night falls, you can trust. I'm gonna help you win this battle because everyone, I got your back, got your back, got your back, got your back. All for one, and that's a fact. Nights fall, pitch black. All of the knights collapsed in a pile over the stage as you turned your head to look at Eva. Yeah, all the boys cried out as they jumped from the sides and cheered in pride, taunting the knights in the middle. Well, you said, watching them laugh at the poor manipulated suits of armor. We did that. That's what I'm talking about. As you held your hand out in the middle and Mallory and Irma raised their hands to join your hand, but everyone stopped after realizing. No, Eva said, sighing. Everyone separated as Mallory walked over to Jackson and Carl, and you and Irma walked over to Harry and Gil. Guys, come on. This was so great. Eva exaggerated. We were a team, we worked together. Come on, she said, trying to grab you and Maul's hand, but you held yours back with a look of disgust. You know what we should try, she said, making you cock your head in confusion. An icebreaker. You sighed while cracking your back. You have to say so's thing nice about another person, she said while pointing at you. You start. You groaned while looking at her as she gave you the look. Fine. You looked around trying to find someone to compliment. Okay, Harry, you said, turning to face him, and he lifted a brow. You have really great hair. And amazing eyes, you said while looking at him. Eva formed an O shape with her mouth. That was great, she said. Is she always this perky? Irma asked, cocking a brow. Oh, it wasn't really your turn, but thank you, Eva said, making you snicker. Mallory then walked forward and grabbed her arm. Okay. Eva, she said. Yes. Mallory stared intently. I love you, Mallory said, making you internally cringe. I love you, she replied. I love this energy, but we are very short on time. Audrey clearly knows we're here. And we need to get out of here ASAP, Mallory said as you butted in. Alright, where does she stay? 'Cause if she's not there, maybe we can find a clue or something. You asked, stepping forward. Actually, she's still in the dorms, she replied to you as you nodded. You're right, because of summer school, Mallory added on, making you squint your eyes in confusion and sympathy for her. That thought train was ended by Harry cackling like a goddamn witch. What? Summer school, summer school. No wonder she wants revenge, he said, wrapping an arm over your shoulder. Okay, I need you guys to go find Brent, Mallory said, rolling her eyes. We'll meet back at Eva's in 2 hours, okay? She continued, crossing her arms as you looked at Irma, and she looked back at you before twisting her head to look at Mallory, and you do the same. Sounds like we're going with my plan, I'm just saying. You butted in, folding your lips inward. It was kind of the obvious plan, Mallory said, holding her hands out. YN said it first, Harry added, smirking. Right, so my plan. You turned to him as he looked down at you. Whatever, Mallory said, walking off. She did this weird hand action, and Irma copied it, making you giggle as she smiled. Everyone began walking out while Eva just stood there with her hands on her hips, before sighing and turning back and letting her arms fall limply to her sides. Amazing eyes. Don't think I forgot, lass, you sighed before turning to Harry. Whatever, you said while walking next to him and nudging him slightly. He wrapped an arm around where you hit him. Ow, lass, I think I am. I'd need the doctor to come and kiss this better eye. You turned and glared at him. You held it for about 5 seconds before you began laughing. Sure, why not? I benefit from it, right? You said, turning around and walking away as he stood there for a second, proceeding what you said before shaking his head and jogging to catch up with you. What a day it's been already. She's nowhere on campus, Eva said, making YN crack open an eye. No chiz, she just cursed the entirety of the town, and you think she going be having a picnic. You really don't remember how villains work, do you? She said, standing up and leaning up against the wall. Amen to that, I added, pushing, falling further into the mattress. Oh, by the way, found her diary. And dang did you ruin Audrey's life. I snickered, earning a grin from YN. I smiled at her. Okay, so did you find anything there that we don't already know or? Mallory said, being as cocky as ever. She hangs out at Fairy Cottage. Ya know where Flora, Fauna and Merryweather hid her mum from your mum, YN said, pushing off the wall and waltzing over to sit on the edge of the bed. Yes, the irony is not lost on me, Mallory said, propping her hand to support her head. I just sighed and leaned back. How can anyone with this bed ever be unhappy? I said, almost falling asleep. This Audrey girl's makeup and jewelry. Once they were finished with their convo, I finished my new look with this girl's stolen goods. Okay, how do I look? I turned to face them. YN turned to me and squealed. Oh my god, you look amazing. Gimme some of that good, she said, rushing over to me. Mum would love this. She sighed and dropped it back down. But I haven't seen her in a while, she said, sitting down next to me. I frowned and placed my head on her shoulder as she wrapped her arm around mine. Eva turned to face us, about to scold me, but then she saw us and turned back around. We were trekking through the woods trying to find Brent, while Carl began screaming his names in hopes of finding him, while Dude ran ahead trying to sniff him out. Dude, I heard Carl say as the dog turned to him with a questioning look on his face. Come on. Nothing, Carl said, hopeful, while he pet Dude. These things just grow everywhere, Gil said as he ate the berries on the bushes that surrounded us. He turned to me while I just looked at him in curiosity. Hey, we should play that icebreaker thing. He chewed on the berries. Jackson, I like the way that you can bounce around and jump of things, he said while gulping down a deadly amount of berries. These are free, right? He questioned, looking down at the berries, then me. Yeah, I like how you get a kick out of a berry bush, I said, chuckling sadly. I guess you've probably everything by now, huh? I mean, I'm grateful. I have a great leader. And when YN came along, she really helped us. Ya know, she got us the best food she could, and Harry's great. My face softened, but regained its posture when he began talking again. Furry rocks, giant fish. And you're probably used to grabbing lunch off a bush. He shrugged, still eating. Nah, I mean, no, not really. I mainly just use the vending machines at practice. Ya know, Tourney kind of takes up was cut of by Harry, laughing. Way to ruin the moment. Tourney, that's a wee boy's game, he laughed, holding himself up with a tree. But my attention was drawn back by Gil slapping my shoulder. Hey, ya know what would be fun? To go rafting in a jungle river, he said while I thought about what he said. I gasped slightly and repeated his action by slapping his shoulder. Finding a lost civilization, I said as his eyes widened. Oh, and maybe a penguin, he said, his eyes practically sparkling. Oh well, you'd find those more in like icebergs, but I'd love to see one of those, I said, smiling. And of course, yet again Harry ruined the vibe. You guys are killing me. He walked in between us before looking at us, then at the bush. He then dug his hook into it and ate a berry. He said happily. Pages S, your mutt went that way, Harry said as we heard Dude shout. Carl, Dude shouted as we all ran over to him. Dude, what do you see? Carl yelled as we ran over there. This way, Dude calmly said, while running. I stayed back and looked at the berry bush. Couldn't hurt to try. I shrugged and grabbed one, then smiled and ran off to join them. I really hope they find Brent. Mallory sighed sadly as I looked at her with pity. Then Irma came up from behind us. Nice dig, she said, looking impressed. I got a really good deal, I said, putting a hand on my hip as I began to walk inside. We all walked up to the castle as I grabbed the spare key from under the mat. Bad move, I heard YN say from behind me. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you want to save Avaloria? I turned, smiling at her. She shrugged and just smiled softly. Yay. I turned back and inserted the key. We all walked inside to see the TW.ins and Dizzy sleeping with a pulled-down blanket. I heard Dizzy squirming and was about to walk over to her, but saw YN already over there. She squatted in front of her before gently caressing her face. Shish, it's okay. You're safe. She planted a kiss on her forehead as she stopped squirming. I looked at Mallory and she looked right back at me, and we held the same expression. We turned back to see YN pulling the blanket back over them as they continued sleeping soundly. Celia then walked over to them and held onto YN's arm. "Don't worry, Dizzy, we can fix this," Celia softly said as she placed her head on YN's shoulder. "And once we do, they're going to let all the kids come from the outcast aisle." YN added on as I smiled softly. I missed her so much. When I heard YN say that, I suddenly felt really guilty. These so-called villains went out their way to help us. And for a lie, my eyes fell down and stared at the ground in self-regret. I was snapped out of my trance when we heard snoring corn from another room. Irma headed over there and the rest of us following. Celia still clinging to YN. We all walked into Eva's studio and saw Doug sleeping on the floor next to her designing table. Who's the dude?" Irma asked, cocking a brow at the sleeping boy. "Doug," Eva breathed out. "Doug." She shook him, trying to wake him. "Wake up." She continued to shake him. "He's spelled." I heard. "Is she not a fast learner?" Irma asked, turning to me. "She's emotionally involved, okay," I said, turning to her with a pitiful look. "Well, in that case she should be able to wake him up." Irma sighed as Eva looked up confused. "True love's kiss. Works every time," YN added on. "Well, we haven't actually used the L word yet." We all sighed. "Can we be alone?" he asked while still caressing his face. I nodded as we all walked out, leaving Eva by herself with Doug. YN Pav. "As soon as we left, you could cut the tension building up in that room with a knife." Just then we saw a red heart with pins in it thrown across the room. "Don't freak out, it's okay. 'Cause true love can save the day, but I don't." "No," Eva sang from inside as we all peeped our heads round slightly to watch. "I decided it best to let her be while she was in her feels. And I think we feel the same, but I don't know." She waltzed over the room, not taking her eyes off of the weird boy on the ground. "When we met, it was sweet. He was oh so into me. Feels like things were meant to be, but I don't know." She laid across the table, looking seriously deep in thought, while continuing to sing. "Does he love me, or does he love me not?" she questioned while turning to her side to look down at the boy on the floor. "Do I love him, and is it strong enough?" She lifted herself of the table. "One kiss," she sang, doing a kissing act. I on with her hand as we all peeped through the door, more to add on. "One kiss," we said encouragingly, hoping she would just kiss the boy she was so obviously in love with. "It all comes down to this. One kiss." She hopped of the table, holding onto the side, not looking away from the boy. "One kiss," we said, hopeful as she drew nearer to him. We waved her on encouragingly, waiting for her to make a move. Whoa, she moved around the table and bent over it. One kiss, this moment could be it. I wanna know, so here I go." She leaned further and further as we sang the notes with her. Every time she got closer to him, she backed away, making us all groan in frustration. "Keep it cool, keep it calm. Think he's loved me all along. But maybe I got it wrong, so I don't know." She spun round her mannequin before pushing it away and sitting down on a chair. Our eyes following her every move. "He's so good, got my back. But maybe I'm just too bad. Could we be a perfect match? Oh, I don't know." We all looked at each other and smirked in amusement. She hopped of the chair with a twirl and walked to the mirror on the other side of the room. "Does he love me, or does he love me not?" she sang, staring at her reflection. "Do I love him, and is it strong enough?" She continued twirling back round. She kneeled down in front of the mirror facing the boy. "One kiss," she sang as we added on. "One kiss," we said, hoping she would just take our advice and just kiss him. "It all comes down to this, one kiss." She crawled further towards him. One kiss. We weren't going to give up anytime soon, or at least not till she kissed Glass's boy. This moment could be it. I wanna know, so here I go." She picked up a red hat and threw it over to a coat hanger, and it landed right on top of it. "Nice. Yeah, here I go." Quite literally, there she goes. She walked out of the glass doors and into the large garden behind the house. I feel my heartbeat beating, saying it's gonna work. But if I'm dreaming, this is gonna hurt. She swayed to the melody we had managed to create and did a little improved dance. "Either I will or I won't. What if I do and he don't? Is he my Romeo? Oh, there's only one way to really know." She catwalked back into the entrance of the door and went on dancing, again. She put her foot on her chair and kicked it right out of harm's way. And pushed away all her little ribbons hanging from the ceiling. Before grabbing onto a dark blue one and dragging it down, then throwing it away. She walked over to what looks to be a literal corpse and kid it up onto its legs and pulling it up. She dragged it so its arms were over her shoulders. One kiss, she sang, moving along to a beat. One kiss. We groaned for the fourth time. It all comes down to this, one kiss. She closed her eyes, leaning forward. Finally, one kiss. Hopefully that would be the last time I said that today. Then she pulled away. Are you kidding me, woman? She pushed him down onto the table beside them. That's gonna leave a bruise. One kiss. One kiss. This moment could be it. I wanna know, so here I go. She said, about to kiss him when the boy yawned and turned over facing the window. Here I go, she sang, and yet again the dude yawned, spreading his limbs out like a cat, pushing Eva back onto the window. Here I go, she said, walking up to him and looking down. She tucked some hair behind her ear before leaning down. She finally kissed him. Her eyes widened as she turned and faced the opposite way. Just then, Glasses Boy opened his eyes and leaned up. He gently nudged Eva before trying to pretend to be sleepy. She turned and slapped him round his knee. He laughed and leaned up as she sighed and walked round the table to sit beside him. She flicked her hair dramatically and turned away while crossing her arms. The boy frowned before nudging her arm with his. She turned to him and smiled. No one's paw. Just then the pair heard slow lapping coming from the door as they turned to see Mallory, YN and Irma standing in the doorway with YN clapping in the middle. So that's what true love looks like, huh? YN said, making Irma giggle a bit before saying, bit like you and Harry then, huh? YN turned, already having a comeback. More like you and Gil. Making Irma blush slightly and look away. Anyways, now that your prince has woke, and I'ma go stay on the couch before the boys get back. I am too tired to do any more background singing. YN said, sighing and walking away with her arms crossed. Audrey's paw. Perfect. With the others. Almost finding Brent and these idiots all in Eva's so-called castle, I can finally lure YN out. All I need is bait. And if this goes well, then I will have all the bait I need. Insert evil cackling here. AN. 11:26 words later, and half of them being the words, one kiss. Needless to say, I never wanna say those cursed words again because my arm is legit about to fall off. But overall I'm pretty happy. Why about this chapter, since I did it on computer and I usually use my phone. Although thanks to whoever is still reading my book, I really appreciate you. You actually make my day when I realize people actually enjoy this. So thanks. Meanwhile, in the woods, Brent, Carl shouted while treading through the woods. The only noises heard were that of his voice and the wind rustling the tall trees. Just then dude came running up to him. Boy, something stinks. And it wasn't me this time, he said with a sound of disgust. Then they heard a large roar as they whipped their heads around to see a beast. He hopped out from the trees. He turned his head, staring dead at them, and continued to roar as loud as thunder. Dude shrieked and ran off into the woods to hide while everyone else was pushing around. The beast was about to ram into Gil, but Carl pushed him aside beforehand. He tried to get to Harry and Jackson, but Harry managed to push him over a log as the beast sat on all fours before pushing himself up. He continued roaring and trying to rush into them, but every time they continued to dodge, angering him more. The beast fell to the ground but held its hand close to its chest as it climbed up onto higher ground. You need some serious nose adjustments, Harry said angrily. I'm not so sure, Carl said unsettlingly. The beast continued to growl until Carl thought of something. Brent, did Audrey do this? Carl asked, then realizing it probably can't talk back. Huh, thought I recognized those pants, Jackson said, making Carl look to him with a seriously face before shaking his head and turning back. Oh, he's got a boo-boo, that's why he's so cranky, Gil pointed out. Ya know, my dad said that his dad did not handle pain at all. He continued. Jackson turned to Carl. You're good with animals, do something, he said while Carl looked at him disapprovingly. Be you. Okay, all right, Carl said while carefully walking his way over to Brent, holding his hands out in a non-threatening way as he walked beside Brent. Hey Brent, he said while Brent continued to roar at him. It's me, Carl, all right. He continued to walk closer with every word. Brent threw a punch at him while Carl dodged and backed away. Brent, it's Carl, all right. You know me. He continued to get closer. You helped me once. Remember with dude. All right, let me help you, he said holding his hand out. Brent held his hand out carefully. Oh wow, that's a big one, Carl said, placing Brent's hand in his. I'm gonna count, all right. 1, 2, once he got to 2 he yanked the splinter out as Brent roared in pain. Zhoo. Then out of nowhere Jane stepped in with a hose and began spraying Brent. Carl saw her and ran over to grab her shoulders. I'm so glad you're all right, they said at the same time. They fell into each other's embrace. Jackson was helping Brent down the mini hill he was on. You good? Jackson asked. Yeah, Brent replied as he sat down on a log while limping. Harry leaned on a tree while the others dove into conversation. What's this? Jackson said, holding his hands up to his face and stroking it. Oh wow, Brent said, feeling his own face and fangs. You need another blast, Jane decided and began spraying him with more of the mystical powers water. Please stop, Brent said as his face got soaked. Huh, it's enchanted lake water. Jane shrugged. I guess it can only do so much, she said, keeping a firm grip on the hose. Hold on, Brent said, looking at Harry. Whose side are you on? He pointed at the Corsair. They escaped and joined us. NYN has the Ember, which is the only hope to stop Audrey. Brent's eyes widened. YN. He practically screamed. Yeah man, YN and Irma are also here. His eyes widened again. How are they here? They're dangerous, Brent screeched. Hey man, YNI's actually really nice when you get to know her. And Irma is just amazing, Gil said with love-struck eyes. Wait, in the Ember, has Mallory gone back to the Outcast Isle? Brent asked again. Details to follow, Jackson said, about to walk away. Where are Mallory, YN and Irma? He asked. Details to follow, everyone shouted at him as they all began walking away. Everyone began walking, leaving Harry and Jackson. Hey Jackson, Harry cleared his throat as Jackson turned to look at him. Yeah, thanks for saving me, gorgeous face, he said, making Jackson scoff. As they both walked off to follow the hers while they all headed back to Eva's castle. We were all sat down eating this disgustingly good cake while Mallory paced around, stressed the hell out. Hey YN, that was a really good idea. To check Audrey's room. Now we know we're on the right track, she said as I turned to face her. Thanks, wouldn't have been able to find it without you, so I said, making her lightly smile. I don't know whose birthday it is, but this cake is bomb, I said, turning back to the cake as Mallory sat down in front of me, while Irma and Celia sat in the living room. So, I'm really sorry for leaving you. I really did regret it, and I thought about you a lot when I left, thinking about how we would rule together, and how fun it would be to fly around together. I'm just really sorry. I kept digging into my cake. Yeah, we really could have screwed Avaloria up, I said, making her look down and smile. Just then we heard a bang on the window. We turned to see a piece of wood on it, followed by another, until all of the windows and doors were barricaded, locking us all inside. Me and Mallory held onto each other as Celia rushed down the stairs from where she was and ran over to me. I put my arm around her protectively. Are you guys okay? What's going on? Eva said, rushing in with glasses boy. Just then Mallory stuck her arms out as her eyes began to glow. You've caused my friends pain and fear, we've had enough now, disappear. It didn't work. I walked up in front of her and pushed her back. I've said it once and I won't say it twice, with you gone we shall see daylight, I shouted with my hands out with a familiar FC glow to them. The barricades then lifted up. You did it, Eva breathed out from behind me. I turned to Mallory and dug the ember out from a suspicious place and placed it in her hand. You can hold on to that, I said as we fist bumped. Just then Celia rushed over to the door and looked at me, Mallory and Irma. Hey, it's your Baez, she said as we realized what that meant and rushed outside to see them. Mallory rushed into Brent's arms as I saw Harry. I squealed and rushed into him as he caught me. Gil and Irma didn't hesitate either. I gripped onto Harry's hook. I ain't ever letting this out of my sight again, I said, making him chuckle as I rested on his chest. I always knew you'd be a part of the solution, Brent said to me, making me nod and roll my eyes in return. With a small smile, I have out. I looked around to find something to throw. I found a small rock and threw it. Just then she whipped her head around and looked directly at me. She exchanged a few words with the other humans around her as she walked my way. She walked into the bush and that was all I needed. I latched onto her skin and seeped in through her mouth and nose. Hello, Squirt, I said kinda happily. Hello, Venom, she said excitedly. Oh, how I missed you, she said as I finished and was now fully in her system. This'll be fun, I thought as we walked back. Reunited at last. Once YN had gotten back, they all began discussing about what their next move would be, considering that Audrey was most likely at her cottage. Okay, so we all think that Audrey could be at Fairy Cottage. And we have no idea where it is. Did she ever take you there? Mallory questioned, looking at Brent with a hopeful face. He looked up at all of us before looking back down and answering. Every fairy godmother's day. Where is Fairy Godmother when you need her? Brent concluded sadly as he thought about the damage that had doomed over his kingdom. He still couldn't quite believe that Audra, why of all people, could have done such a thing. She was always so sweet and caring, and yet she had turned so drastically. I wish I knew, Jane said as YN looked at her in pity as she walked over. Hey, she'll turn up soon. I mean, she's Fairy Godmother, she always does, YN said as Jane looked up at her with a thankful smile as YN smiled back. Hey look, I know this might be a bad time, but happy birthday, Carl said, putting a red box on the table they were sat at. It's our names put together, Carl added, making sure she understood fully. No, I get it. Yeah, she said, looking in awe at the beautiful necklace in front of her in her hands. Ya know, 'cause we're together. You and me are like a couple. Carl laughed. Yeah, because Jane and Carl make Jarlos, she said with a smile on her face. Yeah, I could have gone with Kane, but I went with Jarlos. Unless you prefer Can, Carl interrupted, doubtful she liked his present. Oh no, I love it, Jane said, trying to convince him that she absolutely loved it. It's fine, you know what? It's cool, it's fine, he said, taking the necklace and starting to stand up. Jane began to stand up as well while holding her arms out. No, Carl, it's perfect, she said, standing up and spinning around. She lifted up her hair to expose her bare neck. Carl smiled and put the necklace on her. Is that what love looks like? YN asked, making the two laugh. Yeah, I guess so, Carl added. Can I have some of it? YN asked again, making Jane giggle. Of course you can, she said as YN blew her a kiss and walked off. Doug, go with Jane. We need to find Fairy Godmother, Brent said, pointing between Jane and Doug. After Irma walked over, they might need some muscle, she said, making YN snicker. Well, I'll go, Gil said, looking at his muscles. Yeah, actually I would feel better, Carl said with his arm snaked around Jane's waist. Then Eva added, yeah, actually, I'd feel better too. She held a finger up and pointed at Doug. Okay, Mallory said in a monotone voice. Doug raised a finger to say something but decided against it. Actually, I'd feel better too. This made Gil extremely happy as he wrapped an arm around Doug. All right man, let's do it, Gil said happily. The rest of them then headed back to the main entrance of the castle to make their way over to Audrey's secret lair that was actually just a cottage. Lame. We ended up in the middle of the forest in front of a pretty nice cottage. It was traditional yet surprisingly modern, since it did house a literal princess. We all hid behind a tree to be sure no one could see us. Once the coast was clear, we all carefully trudged through the slightly moist mud and the dry twigs that laid dead of the ground. We had finally made it to a gate that was laced in vines and roses. We opened it and it let out a large squeak. We all made our way inside after Brent had brutally pushed the door open. We walked inside and so far there was no sign of life. Everything was in place and looked as though it was where it should be. Jackson rushed up the stairs and the rest of us began searching around the bottom floor for any clues or signs. Pretty much as soon as Jackson had gone upstairs, he came right back down. She's not upstairs, he said, holding on to the pillar on the side of the staircase. Just then we heard frantic banging coming from somewhere in the house, we all too. RNED to see a wooden door with a glass window on top of it thrashing, almost of its hinges. We all exchanged glances before my eyes turned FC and the wooden restraint flung across to the other side of the room. I kept on high alert in case there was something or anything dangerous in there. We peeked inside and we saw a boy. He has blonde hair and was wearing an Avaloria crested jacket. He was huddled up in a ball and looked traumatized as hell. He looked up to see all of us looking at him with questionable looks. He looked at Brent and said, "I want my mommy," the strange boy said as Brent reached down to try lift him up, but he flinched and held onto the crate beside him, holding on as though his life depended on it. "It's okay, what happened, buddy?" Brent asked as he helped the boy onto his feet. He peeked around as we followed his line of sight. Brent. He threw himself onto Brent holding a fistful of his jacket. "What happened to your face?" he asked, fiddling with his beard. "She's gone. The door is open." He turned back to Brent, then the door, and then back to Brent. He began shaking him. "I'm free. Freedom," he screamed as he ran out the door. Me and Harry began laughing and giggling like little girls. "Honestly, you two are made for each other." Irma sighed as she walked out the door and Eva nodded her head in agreement and approval. "Seriously though, what as up with that guy?" I laughed as Harry and I walked side by side as we walked ahead of the others. "I know, right? Like I thought matey was about to kiss the king." Harry giggled as I held his hook in my hand. And then we walked off. Back to the castle where fate would decide itself. "Hey guys, I think I'm gonna take a quick detour. I'm pretty sure I saw something in the woods," you said as they all turned to you. "All right, do you want one of us to come with you?" Mallory asked, looking over at you. "Oh no, it's okay, I won't be long," you said with a small smile. She just nodded at your response. "Be careful, all right, and come back soon. Don't get lost," Mallory said, acting like your mother. You nodded and jogged off into the woods. Once you had made it far enough to be out of earshot, you saw Venom emerge from your side. "So what did you want to discuss?" you asked, a bit out of breath. "I smelt something weird. Bad smell. Bad guy," Venom said while sniffing the air around him. You began looking around to see if there was anything out of the ordinary. You kept searching before you came across a few snapped twigs, some scattered leaves and a footprint. "Venom, come check this out," you said shakily. He began slithering out from your side but staying attached to you. He engulfed the print in his flesh. "Fresh. Still new. Not too far. Bad guy. Female. Boots. Princess." You gulped. Whoever this footprint belonged to was still out there, and close by. You weren't scared but worried almost. You saw that following the print there was a trail of them. "Why not?" You began walking firmly into the woods before a voice called out to you. "YN." A thick Scottish accent called as you heard the squelching of mud under his boots. You ran off. "I was so worried," he said, slightly out of breath before regaining posture. "Why'd ya run off then?" he questioned. "Sorry, I thought I saw something," you explained as you walked up to him and put your hand on his shoulder. "This reminds me of when we first met, at our boat. Ya almost killed me arm in that death grip," he chuckled. You smiled before gripping his arm and turning around. "Well, might as well catch up with the others," you said, Doctor's secret path you had discovered. "Hey, we need to hang out more, ya know," Harry said, making you halt. "Yeah, we really should," you replied, looking into his sky blue eyes. "You have the most amazing eyes," you said before he too looked deep into your eyes as you stared back intently. Your breathing hitched. You closed your eyes and began to lean in. Then you heard someone clear their throat. "Seriously, Mallory," Irma said, slapping Maul's arm. "They were so close as well." Eva huffed as you chuckled. "TCH idiots," Venom said as he emerged from your neck. "Hey, it's the black blob," Irma laughed as she pounded a finger at him. He just rolled his eyes. "At least you think he did. Anyways, we should hurry. We think we know where Audrey is hiding," Mallory said as we all nodded. "Yes, let's do that." You nodded as you began walking with her. Once you began walking, Harry wrapped his arm around your shoulder and looked down at you. "So we should probably talk about that," he said awkwardly. You just nodded and looked up. Yeah, I would like that, you said smiling up at him. Ooh, but before we do that, let's take this Audrey chick taken care of already. You exclaimed as Mallory, Irma and Harry laughed at your remark. What do you say, mate? Time to wrap things up, you asked, walking up to Mallory and Eva and fist bumping both of them. You know, someday, you're gone, not have to tell me how you guys teamed up, Brent said with his arm around Mallory. Actually, Eva butter in quickening her pace to catch up with you. Mallory promised to let the kids of the Outcast Isle when this is over. She finished while fitting her way to the left of you. Mallory, Brent asked as you gave him a weird look. He had disapproval in his eyes. I have to tell you guys something, Mallory said, turning around to face us. I lied to you, she said, sighing. What do you mean you lied? You said, crossing your arms. You really hoped it wasn't what you thought it was about. Quote, the kids won't be coming of the Outcast Isle, she said with tears in her eyes. We all looked at each other. What about Dizzy? What about your mum and Celia won't ever be able to see her dad? You never even got to meet your own dad. What do you mean? Jackson asked in disappointed. The program has shut down, Mallory answered with guilt in her voice. And, the boundary will be closed for good, she finished. Well, that's just great, you laughed as everyone turned to you. You realize what you just did, right? You said as she tried to say something but nothing came out. Right. Of course you don't. Since you got here you have been such a brat with all your, oh look at me I'm a princesses and your, being a rogue is so wrong. But you know what, Mallory, you are the worst rogue of them all. Because you lie and you lie and you lie. And to think I actually trusted you, but now I'm never going to be able to see my own mother again. Neither will Celia, or Dizzy. And the twins. But, you have no idea what that feels like because you turned your own mother into a freaking lizard. And I never even got to meet my dad, and now thanks to you I probably never will. You finished as tears began flowing out your eyes. You began walking off before throwing the ember on the ground as Mallory rushed to try and get it, but Irma stepped on it. I don't think you deserve this anymore, not after what you did to us, she said as she tossed the ember behind her and Celia caught it. You didn't even see or hear the rest because you had walked so far out of earshot. Once everything was over, Ari and Irma came out the woods and Harry rushed over to you. He engulfed you in a huge hug. You were crying, a lot. They had never seen you cry this much before. And it startled them. Then Mallory came rushing out of the woods since you heard her footsteps and voice echoing from behind you. Irma, she shouted, getting closer. Irma stood in front of you slightly. Maul's eyes shifted to you and guilt rushed up to her face. Irma, stop please, stop, Mallory screamed. I need your help, she said, blocking your path. Well done, because we gave it to you and you lied so. You said, wiping the tears of your face. Your friends finally kick you to the curb, Irma said with a scowl. Good, she growled as Harry kept his arm around you as he slightly pulled you into his chest. Brent saw something in you. You care, you care about everybody, Mallory said, turning to you. You just glared at her. And Avaloria is worth saving, she said, turning back to Irma. You talk pretty, but they've already made up their minds, Harry said as he slightly pushed you back away from Mallory. Can't we just eat her? Venom said as you snorted slightly. No, you said, but he made my Squirt cry. I don't like it when Squirt cries, he continued. You thought, but still no, you said, making him sigh in frustration. Fine, he huffed, but anyways you brought this on yourself, you said, turning back to Mallory. You figure out how to fix it, Irma added on. Let's go, she said, grabbing your hand and taking you away as Harry followed suit. Just then you heard a scream as you turned around and saw. Just then Mallory began emitting purple smoke and you then came to realization as Mallory flew up and began screeching. You then realized that it was Celia's scream and you began emitting the very familiar glow from your hands. You let Mallory deal with Audrey while you went to get Celia, but not before making a quick remark. Now, I have nothing against this villainy of yours, keep on going, I encourage this behavior, but if you don't let Celia go, we will rip your throat out, you said, holding your hands out in defense in case she decided to go after you. Mallory began firing. At her as Audrey fired at Mallory and Mallory fell downwards. You were about to help before you saw Irma running over to her, but Harry kept his eyes locked on you. While Mallory was distracting her, you fell in front of Celia and the girl. You then saw Mallory fly up to join you as you peered over the edge. The ember was working again. There stood Irma looking up as you shot her a quick thumbs you. And she nodded in reply and understanding. You then turned around to see a frightened Celia to your side and Mallory holding the ember up to Audrey. Celia, are you okay? You asked as she turned to you. She smiled and ran up to you. The two of you shared a hug. You heard Irma and Harry cheering from below the tower making you chuckle. But then you turned back to Audrey and your eyes went softer. Hey, is she okay? You asked walking over. No, the power of the scepter is useless against the power of the ember, and she got stuck in the middle of it. If my dad was here maybe I could wake him up, she said as your breath hitched. How did you not notice? Her father is Hades and your father is, also, Hades. Well, maybe I can help. I mean I am half Hades, ya know if you're half. And I'm half we am. Ache a hole, you chuckled nervously rubbing the back of your neck. She turned around to look at you. You're Hades' daughter, she said breathing heavily. I guess so, you said as she smiled. No wand. I liked you the most, Mallory said as you laughed together. You then heard Irma and Harry yell and you heard little footsteps going down the stairwell. You realized it was time to go, so you took Maul's hand and you both followed Celia. Audrey's bedroom, she's slipping away, Eva said holding her hand. Mallory was on one side of Audrey and you and Eva were on the other side. Mallory put her head on the bed in exhaustion and regret. While Brent was pacing across the room, Mallory sighed. There's only one person in the world who might be able to do something about this and that's Hades. Hades. He wouldn't do it, and I wouldn't risk it, Brent stated with a snare. Actually, you butted in as they all turned to look at you. He might do it for YN. She's his daughter, I am too but they are obviously closer. Brent looked shocked to know about Mallory but not as shocked about YN. Okay. We'll have to send guards to go get him. Bridge arms. Maybe I can hitch a ride, Irma said as everyone looked at her. She just rolled her eyes. The Outcast Isle is my home. Someone needs to be there to protect it. She sighed. You're not going without your best friend, you said standing up as she smiled. What's the point in staying if my best mates aren't? Harry said as he stood next to you. You had positioned yourself next to Irma. The Outcast Isle will be in very good hands, Mallory said with small tears in her eyes. I'm gonna miss you, Eva said as you smiled. Me too, can I go too? Celia said sitting up. I wish I could be in both places, she said. I really think that Eva was right, and I do think that we could have been friends, Mallory said to Irma as they smiled at each other. And I'm really sorry that I lied to all of you guys, you deserved so much better than that, Mallory stated. You were just trying to do the right thing, Jackson replied. We aren't mad. You did what you thought was right and you learnt from it, you said and smiled at Mallory. I get it, Eva said. The atmosphere had calmed down and everyone was how they wanted to be. Time skip. Hades had arrived. You heard the footsteps pounding through the corridor. Then he walked in, with multiple guards surrounding him acting as if he was going to pounce on them. Pathetic. Thank you for coming, Mallory said as she stood up and walked to the door. Originally everyone was sitting down in suspense but now you. Mallory and Brent were up. Didn't have much choice. Hades grumbled making you snicker. He turned to look at you with a small smile. Hi Dad, you said walking forward a few steps. Can you wake her? Brent asked from the side of you and Mallory turning his attention turned to him. Since when do heroes care about villains? Hades sneered at Brent as Brent looked down ashamed. He started but Hades cut him off. One of your own. Right, when you guys try to destroy the world, it's an error in judgment. But when it's one of us, he said gesturing mainly to you and him. Lock him up and throw away the key. Right, Beast. Hades growled as Beast glared at him. I'm other words, they call it character development, you said as Hades nodded his head. Quote, touché, Hades said making the two of you smile at each other. Hades then held up his hands as everyone stood back in defense. You all are that scared of his hands, you said rolling your eyes. Yeah, I'm gonna need to use my hands. He said as an irritated tone. You and me both, Dad, you thought to yourself while they undid his handcuffs. Once they took them off, he cracked his knuckles and held his hand out towards Mallory, who placed the blue ember in his hand. Then surprise, surprise, Mr. Show-Off's head caught on fire. Haven't lost my touch, he stated as everyone stayed on guard just in case he tried something. Whilst your dad was healing Audrey, you walked over to Harry. What are the chances? My dad kills all of these guys and we all run away to a tropical island and eat berries for the rest of our lives. You smiled at the thought. Harry chuckled. As much as I wish we could do that, love, we can't. He chuckled, snaking an arm round your waist. Whoa there, Mr. Slow your roll, you joked as you smiled to each other. Alright lovebirds, if you do anything else I might puke, Irma said, making you laugh at her antics. You all heard a gasp as you all turned to see Audrey awake with everyone crowded around her. Tell me it was all a bad dream, she whispered, but everyone heard it. Sadly, it wasn't, but I'll give it to ya. You make one heck off a rogue. Hit me up when you wanna destro. Why Avaloria again? You jokes, making Audrey crack a small smile. Don't worry, it's all over now, Brent said, trying to calm Audrey. Hades and you scoffed at the same time. I'm sorry, Audrey gasped as she looked at Mallory. I wanted to hurt you both. I wanted to hurt all of you, she said in a cracked voice. Everyone sympathized the girl. Mallory took Audrey's hands in hers. I have owed you an apology for a very long time now, Audrey smiled slightly. And so have I, Brent said, making Audrey smile more. And perhaps I have owed you one too, Audrey's wrinkly old grandma said. Blah blah blah. Can we end this sob fest? It's killing my mood, you said, making everyone chuckle. Then Beast gestured to have Hades taken. Oh yeah, he said, acting surprised. Dad, you said, making the guard stop and him turn around. You ran up to him and hugged him. I am gonna miss you, you said into his chest. Me too, kid, but when you take over the world be sure to give me a call, he said, making you giggle. Will do. You kissed him on the cheek and he smiled at you before being taken out. Where's my kiss? You heard Harry say from behind you. You just smiled and said. You'll get it soon enough. You winked at him. The last thing you remember was Mallory running after Hades. Then you went back to the Outcast Isle. It had been around 2 weeks. It was great being home again, but obviously you didn't see your dad because he was under heavy lockdown for trying to run through the dome. You and Harry had gotten closer and Irma and Gil were finally dating. The ceremony's happening. Irma shouted from the balcony at the front of the Outcast Isle. You ran to go join her as you saw Harry standing next to her. Hello, Corsair, you said, walking to stand next to Harry. He chuckled. Hello, my little witch, he said in his thick accent. You laughed at this. He was adorable. You could hear the cheering of the people of Avaloria from over the ocean. Hey, what do you think's going to happen over there? Gil asked, confused. You all looked at him with a, are you that dumb, kind of look. He waved his hands in defense. No, I mean, do you think Mallory will do anything about the Outcast Isle? You all stood there in confusion. Why would she? You did hear her right. She said she was going to close the boundary, you stated as the others nodded. Yeah, but you saw how bad she felt. What if she changed her mind? Gil said. You know what, he might be on to something. Harry said as he slowly snaked his arm around your shoulder, making you smile. You all looked back over to Avaloria to see Mallory holding a staff. No. Yes. She was holding Fairy Godmother's staff, up to the boundary. Guys, look, Irma said. We all observed as the boundary dissolved. Everyone was cheering, smiling, laughing and dancing. It was amazing. You had never seen the lost kids so happy. Come to think of it, you'd never seen yourself so happy. Just then everyone broke into song, again. But it's fine because you joined in. Play break this down. Mallory. It's time to bring together, time for a brand new start. Irma. We gonna put it in motion. Mallory. No more, no division, we down, new team. Got the vision, unite. Mallory. I see you, Irma. You see me, Mallory. I'm perfect, YN. Perfectly, Mallory. Irma, YN. Face to face we can see clearly our similarities, like. Irma. We come together for a good time. Avaloria and the Outcast Isle. We're gonna break this down, we're gonna rock the town, everyone all around, let's be whoever like this, stronger together like this, Irma, believing in second chances, Celia. And we're all starting today, Harry. Marching on in a new land. Carl. Unity, new beginning for us. Jackson. Harmony, that's the mission, marching. Everyone. In the light, 1 2, 1 2, like I see you, you see me, imperfect, perfectly, face to face. We can see clearly our similarities like day and night, wrong or right, we come together for a good time, we're gonna break this down. We're gonna rock the town, everyone, LL around, just be whoever like this, stronger together like this, we reunited like this, bringing it, BBB, bringing it down. This whole part is basically just bringing it, BBB, bringing it down. The rest of the song, bringing it, BBB, bringing it down, BBB, bringing it down, down. We're gonna break this down, We're gonna rock the town, oh. We're gonna rock this town, everyone all around, oh, around, just be whoever like this, come on. STRHIs, we be united like this, are gonna break this down, come on. We're gonna break this down. We're gonna rock the town, come on. Everybody on the outcast aisle gonna like this, everyone all around, oh, around, just be whoever like this, stronger together like this, strong. Cheer together like this, we reunited like this, hey. Bringing it, BB, bringing it down. When everyone had finished dancing and singing, you were standing next to Harry. Well, that was fun. You giggled as Harry looked at you. Ya know, I think it's taken me quite a long time to realize, you have the most beautiful eyes, Harry said to you out of the blue. Me, thank you. I always though. Cheer reminded me of the ocean, you said, smiling at Harry. You have a beautiful everything actually, he said. Someone's getting bold, you said teasingly. Harry moved closer to you and brushed a strand of hair out your face with his hook. He was leaning in, and so were you till you heard someone clear their throat. You both turned to see Hades. Dad, you said, running up and hugging him. Hey, kid, he said, smiling while hugging you back but silently glaring at Harry with a, don't even think about it face. Harry gulped and nodded. Good to know he got the father's seal of approval to marry his daughter, which he would do anyway with or without permission.